I am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that naked won't go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shit won't go down. Corrosion, paradise, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. They're magically delicious. I combined two shits. What's up, everybody? It's Uncle Warren here, and it's another edition of, what's the name of the show? Morning Extra. Had to look at the thing for a second. So many goddamn shows. So little time. I was supposed to do a show with Franco on Wednesday, but I was feeling like dog shit. Still not really feeling that great, but good enough to do this shit, I guess. So it's not like it's happy news that I give you every day when we do this shit. So, you know, it's I'm going to be sick one way or another. Let's go around the horn and see who else here. We got Teresa over on Rockfin holding things down. Every time I start this show, right before I make sure I get the snotties and the coffees out of the way, you know, but, you know, I need a little extra light here. There we go. I'm not quite pale enough. I'm almost translucent. Good morning to you. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO show. He's got a show tonight. We'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Max is here. Max RJ. Bella's here. Good to see you, Bella, and Global. And Willie Bragg. Wow. A-list celebrities in the chat. What's up, Willie? Good morning to you. Finger man in the house. Doing the Miguel peace sign. You know, he's got that copyrighted. You know, he's going to come after you with lawyers. He's going to sue you for doing his thing. No, he's not going to do that. He's a good person. I haven't been feeling so great lately. You know what? So I think the bugaboos are going around again, man. Springtime is a bitch. Spring, look, everybody says, you know, do, and the flowers and the, you know, the birdies and shit. But all it is I feel like death. Because, you know, you get these temperature fluctuations, and in some parts of the country, you know, maybe you have a dry winter and then it starts getting a little humid, you know, and then it's like your body has to adjust to it, you know. And as you get older, and I'm not calling you old, Willie, but you and I are the same age, so we are older than a lot of folks in this space. I think for us, it's like we get a little more prone to being weakened by kind of colds and whatnot. And then that shit, you know, back in 2020 with the jibby jab, God knows what that did to some people. So, you know, if you're feeling sick, I hope you're feeling better. But this news is probably not going to make you feel better. I'm just going to tell you right off the top, if you're new to the show, this isn't sunshine and flowers. There's some heinous shit on this show. But it's information, That needs to be known, that needs to be spread far and wide, because a lot of people aren't doing this kind of stuff, right? At least not the volume anyway. We do a lot of stories on this show. I don't slow down and stop. I mean, I'll kind of comment sometimes during the story if it needs a little bit of clarification, or if it's just something so heinous that it just needs a little bit of commentary in that spot. But overall, I don't like to sit there and like take one article and read it for like 45 minutes and give you my overblown opinions on shit. I've never been overseas. I've never been to the Middle East. I've never been outside the lower 48. And I can only tell you about the places I've been and the people I've experienced and the things that I've done, and the things that I read about other people doing. But then again, that's just it. You're just reading about it. So, although it's be kind of dangerous to travel in the world today, who knows? You may go someplace as an American and they're like, "Oh, you're from the U.S., huh? Yeah, yeah. We got an American over here. Let's take him go alley whip him over here." Hopefully, that's not the case. Anyway, well, we're here. We're all gathered together. We might as well get to this shit. So New York has had some problems with planes in the past. You remember Captain Sully having to land the plane in the Hudson? They made a movie about it with Tom Hanks. But those people survived. This was in New York. They have helicopter tourism there, right? So you get in, you go to the waterfront there, and there's a helicopter pad, and you get in the helicopter. It takes you around Manhattan, shows you all the sights. They even show you New Jersey, where all the bodies are buried. But in this year of planes fucking up, what was the Reagan International Airport? A couple of planes, their wings touched. Like who's driving these fucking planes, right? And they're still trying to figure out what happened in New York yesterday. The helicopter falls apart midair, killed 6 people. There's the helicopter right there. There's video of it. Fortunately, the video doesn't show anything. It just, you see it go behind this area here, and then you see a splash. So, helicopter crashed into the Hudson River near Manhattan's Pier 40 yesterday. Dramatic videos show the aircraft breaking apart midair before plunging into the water. All 6 people on board were killed. The incident occurred around 3:15 Eastern time. New York City Mayor Crackhead Eric Adams confirmed during a press conference. The victims were later identified as Agustin Escobar, CEO of Siemens Spain, his wife, and their 3 children, aged 4, 5, and 11, as well as the 36-year-old pilot. I guess he didn't have a name. What, no name for the pilot? Well, I'm sure he has a name. Eyewitness footage shared on social media captured the moment the Bell 206 helicopter's main rotor and tail boom separated while still airborne. The rotor blades fully detached from the fuselage. Both could be seen continuing to spin as they fell separately from the body of the aircraft before both sections struck the water. And here it is right there. That's wild. It's just like it just dropped out of the fucking sky. That's just crazy. The New York City Fire Department confirmed that multiple rescue boats responded to the scene surrounding the mostly submerged upside-down helicopter. Initial reports indicated that the pilot was pulled from the water alive, though the full casualty count remains unconfirmed. Authorities subsequently urged the public to avoid the area near West Side Highway and Spring Street due to emergency operations and traffic disruptions. West Side Highway itself is pretty fucking dangerous too, so I would just say avoid West Side Highway, period. What's this? Is this another video? That looks like Governor's Island right there. So there it is right up there. That's the rotor blade that came off. That's crazy. Let's see that again. So there's the blade. And then it goes sploosh right there. We won't spend time on it, but I just wanted to show you that that this thing just fell apart in midair. The FAA and the NTSB have launched an investigation into the cause of the crash. Officials have not yet determined what led to the apparent in-flight breakup. Maybe it was an unmaintained helicopter, right? It seems like aeronautics these days are are very questionable. I don't really have a desire to fly anywhere personally. That's why I guess that's why being a homebody pays off, unless your home catches on fire, which probably wouldn't be good either. So other U.S. news we get to as they're taking another look at the Capitol riots. January 6th. What? They bring that shit up again? U.S. intelligence probing whether FBI involved in 2021 Capitol riot. There we go. There's the Escape from New York cast rejects. The top U.S. spies chief, I think that's supposed to be spy chief. The top U.S. spies chief of staff, top U.S. spies chief of staff on Friday, that's poorly worded, said the U.S. intelligence community is investigating whether the FBI was involved in the planning of January 6th, the assault on the Capitol by supporters of Donald Trump. The assault. They let them in. I don't think it's an assault when you let them in through the barricades. We're looking into it right now. Mr. Joseph Kent, Chief of Staff to Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, Miss Flip-Flop herself, said during a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing on his nomination to head the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center. He did not elaborate on which of the 18 U.S. intelligence agencies is conducting the probe. I think it was the CIA. Ms. Gabbard oversees the FBI's intelligence functions. A U.S. Judge Department watchdog report released in December last year debunked claims by far-right conspiracy theorists who alleged that FBI operatives were secretly involved in the Capitol attack. The report found that there were 26 FBI informants in Washington on the day of the attack, but it said the FBI did not authorize any to enter the Capitol or engage in violence. Wink, wink, wink, wink. Nah, we didn't. They weren't supposed to go in there. What? They were just supposed to rile up the crowd. What do you think they were going to fucking do? Mr. Kent's comments came in response to questions from Democratic Senator Mark Kelly about the attack by Trump supporters trying to prevent Congress from certifying Democrat Joe Biden's 2020 presidential election victory. In hindsight, not a bad shot to take, I would say. Even though Trump would have just been as shitty, if not worse. Trump falsely claimed he lost the contest due to widespread voting fraud. In January, he pardoned more than 1,500 people charged in the assault by a mob of his supporters who stormed the Capitol in an unsuccessful effort to overturn his election defeat. I don't think that's what they were doing. I think they just showed up. And they're like, hey, let's get a free tour of the Capitol. Kelly asked Kent, a former Green Beret and Central Intelligence Agency officer and staunch Trump loyalist, what evidence he had to back up a post on what is now the social media platform X, a.k.a. the tweeters, that the FBI and U.S. spy agencies were involved in planning the assault on Congress. We've already identified that there were multiple confidential human informants run by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies that were present in the crowd that day, directing, removing barriers, those types of things, Kelly said. That's Senator Kelly. That has been investigated widely. We continue to look into that intelligence. He alleged that the FBI and law enforcement elements that he did not identify attempted to suppress the fact informants were among the thousands of rioters. Information that forewarned of violence indicated that there had been some degree of intelligent infiltration of groups who stormed the Capitol, he said. Kent said that it probably was the Bureau's Washington field office that was involved and that it was being looked into by the intelligence community. Yes. When you investigate yourself, chances are you find out you didn't do anything. How's about that? Asked for a comment, a spokesperson for Ms. Gabbard's office referred to her announcement on April 8th that a new task force she has formed is executing Trump's executive orders to rebuild trust in the intelligence community. Good luck with that. Starting with investigating weaponization, rooting out deep-seated politicization, exposing unauthorized disclosures of classified intelligence, and declassifying information that serves a public interest. Gabbard campaigned for Kent during his failed 2022 run to represent Washington State's 3rd Congressional District. He was quoted by local media as questioning the validity of Biden's victory and called the Capitol attack an intelligence operation and rioters charged in the assault political prisoners. Several Democratic senators questioned Kent about his participation in a group chat on the Signal messaging app in which top Trump national security officials discussed plans for March 15th airstrikes against Houthi militants in Yemen. Kent said that material posted in the chat was unclassified, but he declined to answer questions, saying the matter is the subject of litigation, which probably will go to court, some sort of committee. The Pentagon's Inspector General's office announced earlier in April that it was opening a probe into Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's use of Signal to coordinate the strikes. That's according to Reuters. That rag, if you can believe those jerks. Yeah. So they're gonna look into. We're gonna see if there was some shit in there. This coming from the lady who said that that there was a genocide going on. Now there's not a genocide going on. Treasury Secretary Bessent warned Spain they will be slitting their own throat if they side with China. Oh yeah, I read that. You see, when people start using these Bond villain stuff, these terms, it's like, I don't want to hear this. I want to see what's going on, right? I see your actions, and that's when it's like, okay, that's when I know you're full of shit. All talk, no action. Meanwhile, Ron Wyden out of Oregon, I think he's out of Oregon, is blocking Trump's CISA nominee until agency release report on telecom's negligent cybersecurity. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden said Wednesday he's blocking the nomination of Sean Planky to run the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, because it has long refused to release an unclassified 2022 report documenting security problems at U.S. telecommunications companies. You know, the ones that are recording all your calls and sharing it with the NSA. Wyden called CISA's failure to release the report a multi-year cover-up of the phone company's negligent cybersecurity. He said he is blocking Planky until the agency releases the report, which will allow Congress and the public to better understand the current threats and the need for stronger cyber defenses. The Oregon senator, whose staff reviewed the report in 2023, has been imploring CISA to release it since July 2022, his statement said. CISA has said it cannot make the report public because of a deliberative process privilege, an excuse Wyden said is bogus. I call bullshit on that too. Deliberative process privilege. When you put privilege in there, This report is a technical document containing factual information about U.S. telecom security, Wyden's statement said. Because the report does not discuss policy options to counter the threat, Wyden said, the public has a right to see it. The dust-up comes in the aftermath of revelations about the Salt Typhoon hack in November. You remember that? That Salt Typhoon? What the fuck? That campaign allowed the Chinese government to break into multiple telecommunications companies and steal call records data while also compromising government officials' private communications. Oh, yeah, that was fun. Vice President J.D. Vance has said that his and President Donald Trump's communications were exposed in the hack. I'm not surprised since they're both a couple of hacks themselves. The national security harms caused by Salt Typhoon are the direct result of U.S. phone carriers' failure to follow cybersecurity best practices, such as installing security updates and using multi-factor authentication, and federal agencies failing to hold these companies accountable, and federal agencies allowing them to wiretap people for the government's use. Oh, wait, that wasn't in there, sorry. There's a little addendum. Planky did not respond to a request for comment. CISA referred a request for comment to the White House, which did not immediately respond because they had to get somebody who could read English. Reuters first reported Wyden's plans to block the nominations. CISA's top telecommunications security expert filed a whistleblower complaint about security problems last summer, Wyden said. Citing his knowledge of privileged materials and very concerning information, the CISA official told the FCC that there have been numerous incidents of successful unauthorized attempts to access the network user location data of communications service providers operating in the U.S., the statement said, quoting the whistleblower. Whistleblower told the FCC that foreign surveillance included the monitoring of voice and text messages and the delivery of spyware to targeted devices. U.S. telecommunications companies still do not meet minimum cybersecurity standards, Wyden alleged. No, well, when you're in cahoots with the government, come on. Come on, Ron. You know what's up. You're in the government. You know how this shit works. So Trump's tariffs on China are starting to look like some shit from The Price is Right, man. It's, the highest bidder, well, not the lowest bidder in this case, I guess it would be the highest bidder. As total U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports now at 145%, according to a White House official. X's over here like, Jesus Christ. He's like, I masturbate with this hand. I know my Trump kind of sounds like JFK, but there's nothing I can do about it. U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports now total 145% after dumbass dramatically increased import duties this week. A White House official confirmed yesterday. Trump said Wednesday that Chinese imports would now be subject to a 125% reciprocal tariff, but that did not include a 20% tariff related to fentanyl that he had previously imposed earlier this year. Remember, he's talking about these tariffs, and he said it was for border control to keep the drugs out. Remember that shit? And now it's like, no, that's not what it was for. Duh. When POTUS and we were talking about 125%, that only referred to the total reciprocal tariff, the fentanyl tariffs of 20% tacked onto those, a White House official told Anadolu, referring to Trump by an acronym. Well, that's what POTUS, yes, President of the United States, if you didn't know that. I didn't know there was a... So now we're going back to the fentanyl tariffs, I guess. Market soared Wednesday as Trump granted dozens of nations of 90-day reprieve from tariffs above his 10% baseline that were supposed to go into effect that day, but fears that the U.S. and China, the world's top two economies, are slipping into an intensifying trade war brought markets lower Thursday. The tech-heavy NASDAQ was down more than 4.6%, while the Dow dipped over 3% in morning trading. Morning. Meanwhile, China said, you know what? We don't want your dumb ass movies over here anymore. Don't worry, China. We don't want American films either, especially not within the last 10, 15 years. I mean, there have been some good ones, but come on. Overall, China to reduce U.S. film imports over tariffs hike. Now, this is huge for people like Disney and Pixar because they have a huge market over there. And a lot of times they won't put offensive stuff in their movies or things that are offensive to Chinese people. They won't put those in the movies. Which is kind of wild. So China announced yesterday that it will reduce the number of films imported from the United States, citing the ongoing tariff dispute between the two countries. The move was confirmed in a statement by China's Film Administration. The decision follows Trump's announcement on Wednesday of an immediate increase in tariffs on Chinese goods to 125%, 145 if you count the fentanyl thing, after Beijing retaliated with an additional 50% tariffs on U.S. products. What are we exporting? The tears of children? We don't make anything. The erroneous actions of the U.S. government's indiscriminate tariffs on China will inevitably lead to a further reduction in the favorable perception of American films among domestic audiences, the Film Administration said. The agency added that it would follow market rules, respect audience choice, and moderately cut the number of films imported from the U.S. As the world's second largest movie market, China emphasized that it would compensate for the decline in U.S. film imports by bringing in wonderful movies from a large lot of countries to meet domestic demand. That's the thing. It's like it's much easier to make independent film now than it used to be, right? Hell, I mean, you got people like big directors like Steven Soderbergh making movies on iPhones, for God's sakes. You know, you can't believe it's 2025 and Rebel is your noun. Nice. The Film Administration also predicted that the U.S.'s aggressive tariff policy would lead to a cooling of Chinese audiences' enthusiasm for American films, resulting in lower demand. Meanwhile, it says, continue with China. Trump on Wednesday described China as the biggest abuser in trading history, accusing Beijing of profiting heavily at America's expense. Well, what do you expect? You export all your labor to China, and then they make shit on the cheap, and now you're bitching about the abusing the trading history? Come on. It's just biting you in the ass. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump said China made $1 trillion off trade with the U.S. in 2024, a situation he called not right. It's not right. None of it's right. It's all wrong. Yes, I know. We don't have production in America anymore. More U.S. fuckery back to back in the House of Representatives. You know those assholes. House GOP approves economic attack on the poor to fund big payout for billionaires, otherwise known as Friday. This is from Common Dreams. I'll say this about Common Dreams. I like their reporting, but whenever Biden was president, they were a little bit in the tank for him. I didn't like that at all. But otherwise, they're pretty good reporters. In a party line vote, House Republicans on Thursday approved a budget blueprint that sets the stage for the GOP to pass another round of tax cuts for the rich, paid for in part by slashing Medicaid, further nutrition assistance, and other critical programs. The Javier Milei austerity approach to government. The final vote was 216 to 214. With two Republicans, Thomas Massey of Kentucky and Victoria Sparks of Indiana. They tried for a 3 at the last second, but airballed, unfortunately. And every Democrat opposing the measure, which now must be converted into legislation. The budget reconciliation process that Republicans are using for their sweeping bill means it can pass with a simple majority in both chambers of Congress. So you just need 50% plus one, basically. Republicans are ramming through a budget that includes $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid and at least $230 billion in cuts to food assistance to pay for tax breaks for billionaires, said Rashida Tlaib out of Michigan in a statement yesterday. These are the largest Medicaid and food assistance cuts in American history. Make no mistake, Republicans want to give away trillions of dollars to the richest people in our country, like Elon Musk, and they want to pay for it by taking food away from hungry children and letting people die from a lack of health care coverage. Tlaib continued, we must raise our voices and defeat this dangerous Republican budget. You had plenty of opportunities to codify Roe v. Wade. You had plenty of opportunities to get at least a public option, if not Medicare for all, when Democrats controlled shit. So this whole, it's the Republicans and the well, yeah, they're in charge now, but when you guys were in charge, you fucked up too. After Watergate, I thought things were getting better. I know, right? It was just the beginning. Passage of the blueprint came hours after Republican congressional leaders and Donald Trump managed to win the support of GOP holdouts, concerned that the forthcoming legislative package won't reduce spending enough to offset the massive cost of fresh tax cuts, which would largely benefit the rich. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for these taxes? Oh, yeah, we'll just fuck over poor people. During a press conference Thursday following the vote, House Speaker and Waffle House manager Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader and human totem pole John Thune signaled that they are unified behind the goal of cutting at least $1.5 trillion in federal spending over the next decade, an objective that Trump has endorsed. So that's $150 billion a year I guess that's how the math works. We have a lot of U.S. senators who believe that is a minimum, Thune said, of the $1.5 trillion figure. Sharon Parrott, sorry, your last name Parrott had to go squawk, woohoo. Polly wants a cracker. Sharon, I'm such an asshole. Sharon Parrott, president of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, said in a statement that in this budget framework, there is no way to cut $1.5 trillion in spending while protecting health coverage through Medicaid and food assistance through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Well, yeah, that's right. They don't give a fuck about people. None of them do. This budget architecture was terrible a couple months ago, Parrott added. It is a far worse plan at a moment when the president's tariffs, chaotically crafted and applied, have caused business uncertainty to soar and raise the risk of a recession, higher unemployment, and surging prices. In a post on his social media site, Trump congratulated House Republicans for approving the measure and claimed it would deliver the largest tax and regulation cuts ever contemplated. The analysis released last week by the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation estimated that renewing soon-to-expire provisions of the 2017 Trump GOP tax law would cost $5.5 trillion over the next decade. Republican lawmakers have also called for an additional $1.5 trillion in tax cuts, which would push the overall cost of the tax package to $7 trillion. We're going to wipe out student debt with a lot of that. David Cass, executive director of Americans for Tax Fairness, said in a statement Thursday that the country is rapidly undergoing an intensifying economic crisis created by Trump and congressional Republicans. And I wouldn't say starting or created. He's more like furthering along one that was already happening. And the only legislative solution they put forward is to double down on tax cuts for billionaires while eliminating health care access and food assistance for millions of Americans. Lisa Gilbert, co-president of the consumer advocacy group Public Citizen, echoed that message, saying that in unifying behind this budget resolution, congressional Republicans are telling us they are serious about their agenda to rob everyday Americans in order to deliver a big payout to the ultra-wealthy in tax cuts, as they now work to actually write the bill that they intend to push through via the reconciliation process, which will deplete funding for healthcare, nutrition, and other critical human needs in order to line the pockets of CEOs and billionaires. They should know we are also serious in our efforts to fight back. Well, yeah. And so I think now it goes to the Senate, and they need just a simple majority in there, and then the orange man gets to sign off on it, I believe. A twofer, as we promised, House GOP approves modern-day poll tax with passage of Orwellian SAVE Act. He's like, I don't like touching shoulders, but you have a nice goatee. I'm going to touch your shoulder. I know he's jealous. I know he's definitely jealous. And this motherfucker, he's going to kill me. The U.S. House's passage of a bill on Thursday that would require Americans to prove their citizenship with documentation. You can bring your birth certificate to the polling place when they register to vote was the Republican Party's response to the fact said one progressive critic that every day more people are catching on to their big grift. H.R. 22 is how they plan to keep themselves in power, said Maurice Mitchell, national director of the Working Families Party of the so-called Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. That's the SAVE Act. Not by making life easier for working people, but by making voting harder. I mean, at this point, is voting even working? It's like, even if everybody, even the kids, if you let little babies, let them vote, right? You're still going to elect shitty people. It's like there's this plug, right? We have all the enthusiasm of the electorate, but you only have shitty politicians to choose from. It's no choice. It's the classic. You get your choice. You want a shit sandwich on rye, or do you want a shit sandwich on white? What's it gonna be? Most women were counting on Social Security after divorce from 20-year marriage. The bill proposed by Representative Chip Roy out of Texas would require all Americans to present a passport or an original copy of their birth certificate in person when they register to vote and update their voter registration, purporting to combat what Republicans have falsely claimed is a problem that affects voters in nearly all 50 states, that of non-citizens voting in federal elections. Yeah, that's totally it. It's the cheaters that are tipping the scales. These damn foreigners coming in here and electing all these fucking assholes. With non-citizens already barred from voting in federal elections, numerous analyses have found that very few ballots have ever been cast by people who aren't U.S. citizens. The Brennan Center for Justice found that non-citizens were suspected of casting just 30 votes out of 23.5 million in 2016, or 0.0001% of all votes cast. See, it's just a smokescreen. This is something to lead up to digital IDs, to get everybody on the digital, and that's where they got you. They want to know who you're voting for, that kind of shit. But the Brennan Center was among many rights advocacy groups warning Thursday that more than 21 million Americans don't have easy access to their birth certificates or a passport and could be disenfranchised by the SAVE Act. The House has just passed one of the worst pieces of voting legislation in American history, said Michael Waldman, the group's president and CEO. The Senate must stop it. The SAVE Act would put voting out of reach for millions of American citizens. It should not become law. According to Public Citizen, the SAVE Act has the potential to stop tens of millions of Americans from voting. You know what else has the potential to stop tens of millions of Americans from voting? Here coming. Shitty fucking candidates. Yes, yeah, that I don't want to vote for them. I'm a citizen, and I have my birth certificate ready. I don't want to vote for these motherfuckers. About 146 million citizens don't have a passport, nearly as many as the 153 million people who voted in the 2014 presidential election, Public Citizen noted. The bill could also disenfranchise up to 69 million women, nice, and 4 million men who have changed their names after marrying, as they wouldn't be able to use their birth certificates showing their names at birth to prove their citizenship. Voters in states including West Virginia, Mississippi, woo! Mississippi's always in with the shitty states. Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, where the wind blows swiftly down the plains, where less than 1/3 of citizens have a valid passport, could be most impacted by the SAVE Act's requirement. The SAVE Act is an assault on a fundamental American freedom, our ability to vote, said Gilbert. A set of eligible voters who were able to participate in past elections, some who have been registered for decades, will now be unable to cast their ballots. Along with making voting harder for people in rural areas, naturalized citizens, low-income voters, Native Americans, first-time voters, and people of color, many of whom lack easy access to citizenship documents, the SAVE Act would end voter registration drives, upend online voter registration systems that are used in 42 states, and make it harder for voters to register by mail. States would also be required to establish programs to purge existing voter rolls. I have a feeling that they're going to try and do this, and it's not going to work, and it's just going to go back to the states, and each state's going to make up their own dumbass rule about voter ID, which is a poll tax. If you think about it, if you have to purchase a voter ID, if you have to pay money for an identification just to vote, that's a poll tax. You're paying to vote. It's as simple as that. Trump and the Republicans, a bad 60s boy band, said Mitchell, want to weaken the opposition to their pro-billionaire agenda, even if that means taking away our freedom to vote. But we refuse to be silenced, and we will do everything in our power to stop their shameless power grab. Power. Noms. Damn, itchy nose. I shouldn't have done all that cocaine this morning. 4 Democratic House members, Representative Jared Golden out of Maine, Marie Glusenkamp Perez out of Washington State, Henry Cuellar, I think it's Cuellar, how you say his name, out of Texas, and Ed Case out of Hawaii, joined the Republicans in supporting the legislation. Really? Common Cause denounced the 4 Democrats for their vote to suppress the vote of millions of Americans. The House just passed the SAVE Act, and with the help of 4 Democrats, those motherfuckers all just voted to suppress the vote of millions of Americans, all while doing nothing to secure our elections. If you're just listening along and you're not reading along with me, some of the stuff I'm adding in, so they didn't call them motherfuckers, but I did. Common Cause President and CEO Virginia K. Solomon said the SAVE Act should be called what it is, a modern-day poll tax, like I said. If this bill becomes law, millions of hardworking Americans will have to either shell out money getting the right papers to prove their citizenship or have no say in the next election for Congress and president, said Case Solomon. The point of the bill, she said, is to make it so difficult to vote that many people will give up on voting altogether. Again, they're already doing that by running shitty candidates. If you look, what is it like? 40% of the people who vote are independents or don't vote, or 40% of registered voters or people who are eligible to vote either vote independent or they don't vote at all. And a good majority of them don't vote at all. But they gave up. Voting's bullshit anyway. Time to hit the streets. In the Senate, Mike Lee, Republican out of Utah, introduced a companion bill because, of course, you can't have one shitty bill by itself. Earlier this year, the GOP, which holds 53 Senate seats, while the Democrats hold 47, would need Democrats to join them to overcome the 60-vote filibuster threshold in order to pass the bill. Every U.S. senator who cares about protecting our rights to the ballot must vote down this poll tax in any form, said Case Solomon. Common Cause and our 1.5 million members will make sure every senator hears from the people that this bill is dead on arrival. Tony Kark, executive director of the government watchdog group Accountable.us, said the SAVE Act also paves the way to toss out legal votes and undermine election results that the Republicans don't like. The Democrats, too. If you think about the primaries, everybody forgets them. See, that's the thing about Common Dreams. They like to hammer on the Republicans, but they forget about how shitty the Democrats are in the primaries. Congressional Republicans' anti-voting legislation is a power grab to silence the voices of American citizens. Full stop, said Kirk. Trump, Musk, and their allies in Congress are attacking voting by threatening Americans' ability to vote by mail, allowing Musk's Doge to access sensitive personal information, and kneecapping states' ability to run free and fair elections. It should send a chill down the spine of every American, he said. Well, I think we're all desensitized now. We know how shitty our government is. The Supreme Court actually... pretending to be a broken clock, as Supreme Court orders Trump to free Maryland father from El Salvador prisoner. We told you about this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There he is right there. A Maryland man deported to an infamous prison in El Salvador must be returned to the U.S., the Supreme Court ruled yesterday, upholding a federal judge's order forcing the Trump administration to facilitate his return. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was swept up in deportation flights last month and sent to a terrorism center in El Salvador, despite a judge's order finding local gangs would persecute him in his home country. The Trump administration conceded that Abrego Garcia was sent to El Salvador's Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, or CSOT, by accident, but fought in order to return him to the U.S. A Maryland judge ordered Abrego Garcia returned by midnight on Monday. The Justice Department said the request was impossible and asked the Supreme Court to intervene. It was pretty easy to put him in the fucking jail. How is it not easy to take him out? Pittsburgh dude 7. What's going on? Oh, Pittsburgh dude 87. Jay and the Americans much better than Trump and the Americans. That's Trump and the Republicans. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're pretty good. Your Oklahoma rendition. Oh, come on. Don't be a hater. That's fine. Everybody has their opinions. It's like belly buttons. Everybody has one. Except for Adam and Eve. They didn't have belly buttons, did they? They were created in a lab, but that's a discussion for another day. The government of El Salvador has custody of Abrego Garcia, so he cannot be returned to the U.S. unless the government of El Salvador releases him. U.S. Solicitor General John Sauer wrote, compliance with the district court's order thus requires the government of El Salvador to release plaintiff Abrego Garcia from its prison. We ain't got nothing to do with it. It's El Salvador. They got to let him out. You know, it was easy to talk to tell El Salvador to let him get in. I think it's pretty. They one phone call and that guy would have been out. So this is all a bunch of shit. Under the deal with El Salvador's president, the Trump administration is paying the country $6 million. We can deport him. We have the technology to hold U.S. deportees. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem toured the prison last month, taking selfies and acting like a royal cunt, calling CSOT one of the tools in the U.S.'s toolkit. Abrego Garcia's attorney said the statement is proof that the Trump administration can facilitate migrant returns. Yeah, look at that, don't they? U.S. government functionally controls Abrego Garcia's detention. It has simply contracted with El Salvador to be the jailer, his attorneys wrote. Chief Justice John Roberts, a George W. Bush appointee, issued an administrative stay Monday, pausing Abrego Garcia's return until the High Court reviewed Trump's emergency appeal. Abrego Garcia was working as a sheet metal apprentice in Maryland, where he lived with his wife, a U.S. citizen, and their 3 children before his arrest. The Department of Homeland Security gave him a permit to legally work in the U.S., according to his attorneys. A U.S. immigration judge released Abrego Garcia after shielding him from deportation to El Salvador in 2019. ICE did not try to capture him until Secretary of State Aquaman declared MS-13 a foreign terrorist organization. The Trump administration claims Abrego Garcia is a member of the gang, a charge his lawyers strongly contest. Yeah, it's real easy to get. It's the Hotel California down there in El Salvador. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. What, you need to hear Finger Man? I did it for you a while ago, man. I'll do it again. It's not like they're costing me money or anything. Yeah. So when he comes home, that's going to be a different story. Something tells me they're going to drag this out as long as they can. This happened, I think, right not long after the news we did on Tuesday down in DR. As the death toll in the Dominican Republic nightclub tragedy tops 200, recovery efforts wrap up. So this is the, we got a thing here. I don't know if this is in English or not. We'll see.
Search and rescue efforts following a deadly nightclub roof collapse in the Dominican Republic transitioned to a recovery phase on Thursday. Authorities said the death toll had risen to more than 220 people. Mourners wept outside the Jet Set Club in Santo Domingo as crews sorted through the rubble. The roof of the nightclub collapsed after midnight Tuesday. Since then, anxious families have gathered outside the wreckage for news about their missing relatives. The tragedy struck during a concert by popular Dominican singer Ruby Perez, whose life was honored Thursday during a funeral service attended by the country's president. The concert had drawn politicians, athletes, and other prominent figures. It remains unclear exactly how many people were inside the nightclub when it collapsed, and the government said the cause of the incident would be investigated once recovery efforts wrapped up.
Yeah, that's it's so terrible. What was there? It was another nightclub too. Was it in Myanmar or somewhere? Or maybe in Indonesia somewhere? We talked about that not too long ago. Yeah, so killing at least 221 people in that collapse there. Yeah, the sudden collapse at the Jet Set Club in Santo Domingo after midnight on Tuesday killed merengue singer Ruby Perez. I'm sure some politicians and athletes and other prominent local figures perished in that as well. Today, the search, rescue, and recovery of victims ended. Presidential spokesperson Homero Figueroa said in a video the government posted on social media, now it's time to move on to another phase, that of understanding and explaining what happened. The Dominican government has approved creating a team of national and international experts to clarify the cause of the roof collapse at the popular venue, Figueroa said in the video. Emergency teams that were on site until Thursday morning pulled nearly 200 survivors from the building in the hours following the disaster. Juan Manuel Mendez, head of the country's Emergency Operations Center, the COE, said, "This is the hardest task I've had in my 20 years of leading the COE," breaking down in tears. After recovery efforts ended, the families of those missing left the area surrounding the nightclub, where they had stood for days, embracing each other. Perez, the singer, was among those killed in the crush, as they said. Dominican President Luis Abinader attended the funeral yesterday with a public memorial service for him set up to follow later in the day. Pitcher Octavio Dotel and slugger Tony Blanco, both former Major League Baseball players, also died in that. It just collapsed. I mean, how does a building collapse that's not like 1,000 years old? Unless it was 1,000 years old. Bella, what's up? I think I said hi to you before, Bella. If I didn't, I apologize. I'm an old man. My memory isn't that good. So, you was following. You were you were folding laundry. Okay, good. What's next on the hit parade here? So Panama said, yeah, you can hang out, but you can't move your shit down here, U.S. As Panama resists permanent U.S. bases, signs narrower security agreement. Panama has signed a scaled-back security deal with the U.S. that allows American troops to use local military facilities, but rules out the establishment of permanent U.S. bases following concerns over national sovereignty and public backlash, and the fact that whenever the U.S. puts a base anywhere, they're basically running the show. The development is being seen as a major concession to Donald Trump as he seeks to reestablish influence over the vital waterway. The agreement, signed by top security officials from both countries, allows U.S. military personnel to deploy to Panama-controlled facilities for training, exercises, and other activities. The deal stops short of allowing the United States to build its own permanent bases on the isthmus, We wish you a Merry Isthmus. We wish you a Merry Isthmus and a happy canal. A move that would be deeply unpopular with Panamanians and legally fraught. Also would not be good for Van Halen, because that was one of their big hits. Panama, Panama, reach down between my legs, ease the seat back. However, it gives the U.S. broad authority to deploy an unspecified number of personnel to bases, some of which Washington built when it occupied the canal zone decades ago. Since returning to power in January, Trump has repeatedly claimed that China wields too much influence over the canal, which handles around 40% of U.S. container traffic and 5% of global trade. Yeah, the math works out. His administration has pledged to take back control of the strategic waterway that the U.S. funded, built, and controlled until 1999. Party over, oops, out of time. So tonight we're gonna control the canal till 19... Sorry. That's why I don't freestyle. The U.S. has long taken part in military exercises in Panama. However, a long-term rotational force similar to the one the U.S. maintains in Darwin, Australia, could prove politically toxic for Panama's center-right leader, Jose Raul Molino. Molino was in Peru on Thursday, where he revealed that the U.S. had asked to have its own bases. Molino said he told visiting Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth that the U.S. bases allowed under an earlier draft would be unacceptable. He warned Hegseth, "Do you want to create a mess? What we've put in place here would set the country on fire." To which Hegseth said, "Fuck it! Let's cook it all, baby! Woo!" He put on the chef's hat and he had this kiss the cook apron on. In the watered-down Memorandum of Understanding, this is my failed memoirs, currently number 1026 on the Amazon list there. Signed by Hegseth and Panama Security Chief Frank Abrego on Wednesday, Panama secured its own concessions. The U.S. recognized Panama's sovereignty, not a given, following Trump's refusal to rule out an invasion, and Panama will retain control over any installations. Panama will also need to approve any deployments. But given Trump's willingness to tear up or rewrite trade deals, treaties, and agreements, that might offer little comfort to worried Panamanians. You're like, oh, Americans, they're a bunch of fucking liars. Don't believe them. The country has a long and complicated relationship with the U.S. They share close cultural and economic ties, despite the decades-long U.S. occupation of the Canal Zone and the U.S. invasion 35 years ago to overthrow dictator Manuel Noriega. I don't know if you remember that. I think, weren't they playing? Didn't they blast like Metallica or something outside of his headquarters there or something, and that's how they finally got him to come out? It was some shit like that. It was probably all bullshit. Most of that shit is that invasion killed more than 500 Panamanians and razed parts of the capital. Trump's vow to reclaim the canal and his claim of Chinese influence have sparked mass demonstrations. Yeah, I am altering the deal. Pray that I alter it no further. By law, Panama operates the canal with open access to all nations. However, however in this, the U.S. president has zeroed in on the role of a Hong Kong company that has operated ports at either end of the canal, linking the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans for decades. Under pressure from the White House, Panama has accused the Panama Ports Company of failing to meet its contractual obligations and pushed for the firm to withdraw from the country. The port's parent company, C.K. Hutchinson, announced last month a deal to offload 43 ports in 23 countries, including its two on the Panama Canal, to a consortium led by U.S. asset manager BlackRock for $19 billion cash money. An enraged Beijing has since announced an antitrust review of the deal. Panama, Panama, Panama. Always like cold endings like that. What? Why? I thought we were working together. So meanwhile, we mentioned Argentina earlier in the show, and now we won't mention them again as Argentina general strike demands end to Malay's chainsaw austerity policies. They do not like him down there. Increasingly fed up with economic policies under which poverty and inflation have soared while vital services, wages, and the peso have taken huge hits. Sound familiar? Disaffected Argentinians took to the streets of cities across the South American nation Wednesday for the third general strike of right-wing President Javier Milei's tumultuous 16-month presidency. He's only been in office for 16 months. Led by the General Confederation of Labor, the CGT, that makes sense, an umbrella group of Argentinian unions, the Paro General, or General Stoppage, drew workers, the unemployed, pensioners, educators, students, and others affected by Malay's severe austerity measures and his administration's plans for more deep cuts. Demonstrations continued throughout Thursday in the face of intolerable social inequality and a government that ignores calls for better wages and a dignified standard of living for all. The workers are going on strike, CGT explained ahead of the action. And hopefully this doesn't do something. Okay, yeah. So this is what it looks like. They're protesting Malay's fiscal adjustment measures. That's good to see. We already have experience as Argentines that no agreement has been beneficial for the people, only for the evasion of the money that comes in, getting into debt and getting worse and worse. The strike is set to paralyze trains and planes and automobiles and shutter schools and banks, and comes while Malay awaits news on a fresh IMF loan. You pretty much get it. I don't buy medicine. I don't pay taxes. But I pay taxes. I live here in Buenos Aires and I can't afford it. I have to wait for my children to help me. Yeah, so you get the gist there. Airlines canceled hundreds of flights as air traffic controllers and other airport workers joined the strike. Many schools, banks, and other offices shut down, and ports, some public transport, and other services ground to a halt. So it was planes, trains, and automobiles. Was Steve Martin down there? The only thing the administration has bought is a wave of layoffs across state agencies, higher poverty rates, and international debts, which are the biggest scam in Argentina's history, the Association of Airline Pilots, the APA, said. Rodolfo Aguiar, Secretary General of the Association of State Workers, the ATE, there's no T. Why you keep putting T's in here? Said Wednesday that after this strike, they have to turn off the chainsaw. There's no room for more cuts, a reference to both Malay's ubiquitous campaign prop and his gutting of public programs upon which millions of Argentinians rely. Right now, the crisis Argentina is facing is worsening, he added, warning that government talks with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, warning about government talks with the IMF. The rise in the dollar will quickly translate into food prices, and the new deal with the IMF is nothing more than more debt and more austerity measures. Yeah, pretty much. Malay's government is nearing agreement on a $20 million IMF bailout, a deeply unpopular proposition in a country left reeling by the U.S.-dominated institution's missteps and intentional policies that benefit foreign investors while causing acute suffering for millions of everyday Argentinians. Argentina already owes $44 billion to the IMF. And so the IMF shows up with the baseball bat and says, yeah, you're a little bit late on those payments there. What's up, Wesley? Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're doing well. We already have experience as Argentinians that no agreement has been beneficial for the people, retiree and striker Rezo Mossetti told Agence France Presse in Buenos Aires Thursday, lamenting that his country keeps getting into worse and worse debt. CGT decided to launch a general strike during a March 20th meeting that followed a pensioner-led March 12th protest outside the National Congress in Buenos Aires. after fringe elements, including rowdy soccer fans known as Barra Bravas, joined the protests and committed acts of violence and vandalism. Ooh, agents provocateur. Police responded by attacking all the demonstrators with less lethal weapons, including water cannons and tear gas. Less lethal. A gas canister struck freelance journalist Pablo Grillo in the head, causing a severe brain injury that required urgent surgery. Less lethal. This after Argentinian Security Minister Patricia Bullrich invoked controversial measure empowering more aggressive use of force against protesters and rescinding a ban on police use of tear gas canisters. The Security Ministry also filed a criminal complaint, dubiously accusing organizers of the March 12th protests of sedition. Milei and his supporters have portrayed the general strike as a treasonous assault on the fragile Argentinian economy, and those taking part in the day of action as lazy and jobless. When Clarín, the country's largest newspaper, cited a study by the Argentine University of Enterprise claiming that the general strike would cost the national economy around $185 million per day. University of Buenos Aires professor Sergio Wisniewski retorted, very revealing. It means that the magnitude of the wealth workers produce every day. It means that's the magnitude of the wealth workers produce every day. It's the best argument to stop ignoring workers, which is very, very poignant right there. It tells you $185 million a day, which is a shit ton of money down there. So when you stop, when you do a general strike, when you shut it down, that money comes, it goes by the wayside. That's why you have to do it here, but you have to do like they did. You got to shut down the airports. You got to shut down the ports. You got to shut down the trains. You got to shut down all the arteries of this crony capitalism that's going on. And then maybe someone will listen. But you can't just stop at concessions. You have to stop when there's a full change in the economic and political environment, which is probably not going to happen anytime soon. As he's done with past protests against his rule, Milei has also framed the general strike as an attack against the republic and repeated his threats that police would crack down on demonstrators. Yep, the freedom of protest not down there. General strikers largely shrugged off the threats of police violence and state repression. The right to strike is a worker right, and I think there has to be more strikes because the situation with this government is unsustainable. Hugo Velazquez, a 62-year-old worker striking in Buenos Aires, told Reuters. While the Argentinian mainstream media's coverage of the general strike was largely muted, images posted by independent progressive media showed parts of central Buenos Aires appearing practically empty. Ghost town, baby. Look at that. Workers around the world showed solidarity with striking Argentinians. The Milei government has picked a fight with workers and pensioners, and now they will feel the full force of organized labor, said Paddy Crumlin, president of the London-based International Transport Workers Federation, the ITF. That has a T, but there's no F in there. Whatever. Which boasts nearly 20 million members and 677 unions in 149 nations. Good people to know there. The international trade union movement stands ready to fight back with our Argentine comrades. We will not rest until these attacks on workers' rights are defeated. There's a nice lady there, I'm sure. ITF noted that various sectors of Argentina's transportation sector are under direct threat of privatization, including the national commercial airline Aerolíneas Argentinas, the National Highway Board, and the Argentinian Merchant Marine. The Highway Board. They're going to privatize the highways? Milei, a self-described anarcho-capitalist who was elected in November 2023 on a wave of populist revulsion at the status quo, campaign on a platform of repairing the moribund economy, tackling inflation, reducing poverty, and dismantling the state. He made wild promises, including dollarizing Argentina's economy and abolishing the central bank. However, the realities of leading South America's second largest economy have forced Milei's administration to abandon or significantly curtail key agenda items, leading to accusations of neoliberalism, and betrayal from the right, and hypocrisy and rank incompetence from the left. But here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Betrayal from the right, hypocrisy to the left. Sorry. Was it Steelers Wheel did that song? According to most polling, Milei's approval rating has fallen from net positive to negative in just a few months. You think? Particularly galling to many left-of-center Argentinians is Milei's cozying up to far-right figures around the world, especially Trump. Andrew Kennis, a Rutgers University media studies professor specializing in Latin America, noted similarities between the protests in Argentina and anti-Trump demonstrations in the U.S. Well, anti-Israel protests in the U.S. It's no coincidence that 5.2 million people were in the streets in all 50 states just this past Saturday. And really, that the U.S. is now catching up with the mass resistance that's long been going on in Argentina. Kenneth told Common Dreams yesterday. I don't know if they're catching up. 5.2 million people out of 330 million people. And on the weekend when it's convenient, come on. That's just role playing. We're out here protesting. Nobody gives a fuck. Shut the shit down. That's when people will give a fuck about your fun little protests, all right? Your little marches, your little bullhorns, all that stuff, that's all well and good. But unless you're shutting shit down, it's just a fucking parade. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be that guy, but I am that guy. And these protests, they ain't doing it. Kenneth, who this week published a deep dive on Milei's destructive chainsaw theory in Common Dreams, added that in the cases of both Milei and Trump, there was no real honeymoon period, as there almost always is for most new presidencies. In both countries, people were in the streets pretty damn fast and furiously. Not enough in the U.S., though. Not nearly enough. And as I said, just weekend protests, the parades. Mariana, hello. How are you? He's the Austin Powers version of Trump. He looks like it with the chops. You so stupid. You so stupid, Mariana. I still love you, baby, but you're stupid. Meanwhile, as we go from one nightmare country to another, Israel strikes on Gaza, kill 40 Palestinians over 24 hours. Which is really not news, but, we have to keep reminding you that Israel's a piece of shit. Gaza's health ministry said yesterday that Israeli attacks killed at least 40 Palestinians and wounded 146 over the previous 24 hours as strikes pounded targets across the strip amid a total Israeli blockade. This from antiwar.com, antiwar.com from Dave DeCamp. You know that guy. The health ministry's figures are based on the number of dead and wounded Palestinians brought to hospitals. There's still a number of victims under the rubble and on the streets, and ambulance and civil defense crews cannot reach them, the ministry said. Jesus. According to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, Israeli strikes included attacks on the southern cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis, and in Gaza City and Beit Lahia in the north. At least 4 Palestinians were killed in Israeli attacks on Gaza City's Shujaiya neighborhood, which was hit by massive strikes a day earlier, leaving dozens missing under the rubble. Al Jazeera reported yesterday that rescuers continue to search for an estimated 80 people who are missing in Shujaiya. The health ministry said that since Israel started its genocidal war on March 18th, which it did with full U.S. support, at least 1,522 Palestinians have been killed. 3,843 have been injured. The renewed bombing campaign has had a devastating toll on children, with more than 500 among those killed. The ministry also said that its recorded death toll since October 2023 has reached over 50,000. It's getting close to 51,000. The number of wounded, almost 116,000. Many are missing and presumed dead under the rubble. They think that the number is more like 62,000. It's probably higher than that. Other estimates that account for indirect deaths caused by the U.S.-backed Israel siege put the death toll in the hundreds of thousands. And I think that's probably the most realistic number to come out of all this. Are we not doing this? What's going on? Let's try this again. There we go. So meanwhile, Yemen, they're still shooting down Reaper drones. If you can bring them, we'll shoot them down. Yemeni air defenses have shot down a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone for the third time within 10 days as daily U.S. airstrikes on Yemen that began on March 15th, which Yemen did not attack us, by the way. And during the ceasefire, they stopped firing on U.S. ships. So the only reason we're pounding Yemen, or the U.S. is pounding Yemen, is because their masters, Israel, are telling them to do that. So, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree said on a Wednesday that Yemeni forces were able to shoot down an American MQ-9 drone while it was carrying out hostile missions in the airspace of Al Jauf Governorate using a suitable locally manufactured missile. Fox News reporter Jennifer Griffin, who has sources in the Pentagon, confirmed that the drone was shot down. This is the fourth MQ-9 Reaper drone shot down by the Houthis since March 3rd, and the fourth shot down under the Trump administration, she wrote on X. Tweeters. Griffin recently reported that the U.S. has been bombing Yemen using heavy B-2 bombers deployed to the U.S. base on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. The U.S. military has carried out 25 straight days of bombing, including with B-2 stealth bombers dropping bunker buster bombs. That's a tongue twister. And yet the Houthis continue to fire missiles to shoot these expensive U.S. assets down, she said on Wednesday. Public funds paying for your United States to waste money on weapons. Saree said the incident marked the 18th American MQ-9 Reaper drone shot down by the Houthis since October 2023. At $30 million a pop, that means $540 million worth of U.S. drones have been lost if the Houthi number is accurate. New York Times recently reported that the bombing campaign launched by Trump on March 15 will soon have cost over $1 billion. Remember, 20 of those billions of dollars can end homelessness in the United States, if you're into that sort of thing. Saree also claimed more attacks on Israel and on U.S. warships in the region and reaffirmed the Houthis would only back down if there were a ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the Israeli blockade on the country. The armed forces, as they fight this battle with valor, defiance, and faith, reaffirm, as they have affirmed over the past years, that great Yemen is resilient and will not back down from supporting and backing the oppressed Palestinian people, Saree said. It will not surrender to the American aggression and will remain as it was and will always be a graveyard for invaders. Yeah. As U.S. airstrikes continue to pound Yemen on Wednesday with attacks reported in and around the capital, Sana'a, and in the Red Sea province of Hodeidah, Yemen's agriculture ministry reported U.S. strikes on a farm in the Damar province, which is it condemned as a full-fledged war crime. Yeah, because it's a farm. 4 civilians were reported wounded in the attack. On Tuesday night, U.S. airstrikes hit a residential building in Hodeidah. The death toll in the attack has risen, with the Yemeni Health Ministry reporting that 10 civilians, including 5 women and 4 children, were killed. Because it's always women and children getting murdered by these psychopaths. Yeah. Side note, like I've told you before, I've known some people from Yemen, right? These guys, couple of families that owned these 2 stores at the end of the block where I lived in Brooklyn, and they told me that they came to America, they opened these stores, right? These little bodegas, and these guys work every day. They work 7 days a week. There's no. You go in there, the one guy in the morning, one guy in the afternoon, one guy in the evening. It's always the same 3 fucking guys. I said, how you guys do this? He said, you know, we work hard so that we can bring more money home to our families in Yemen. So from a very, very, very microcosmic, you know, look at the Yemeni people, you can tell these are some tough motherfuckers, right? And it's probably going to take nukes to take them out. And even then, they'll probably go underground and come back up and shoot, or they'll shoot the nukes down because they're highly resilient in that respect. So what is this? Okay. So meanwhile, France is saying some crazy shit, as France could recognize a Palestinian state in June, according to Macron there in his sideburns. Look at those French choppers down. They're not Charlie Rich Silver Fox chops, but they're pretty nice. France plans to recognize a Palestinian state within months and could make the move at a UN conference in New York in June on settling the Israel-Palestinian conflict, President Emmanuel Macron said in an interview broadcast Wednesday. We must move towards recognition, and we will do so in the coming months, Macron, who this week visited Egypt, told France 5 television. Our aim is to chair this conference. Here we go. Our aim is to chair this conference with Saudi Arabia in June, where we could finalize this movement of mutual recognition by several parties. I will do it because I believe that at some point it will be right, and because I also want to participate in a collective dynamic, which must also allow all those who defend Palestine to recognize Israel in turn, which many of them do not, he added. Well, the Palestinians didn't steal Israel's land. Just saying. I'm just saying. Such recognition would allow France to be clear in our fight against those who deny Israel's right to exist, which is the case with Iran and several other countries too, and to commit ourselves to a collective security in the region. So he wants a 2-state solution. That ain't going to happen. But, you know, at least recognizing Palestine is something. France has long championed a 2-state solution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict, including after the October 7th attack by Palestinian militants, Hamas, on Israel, which was more an IDF attack thing. They killed more people that day, more of their own people. But formal recognition by Paris of a Palestinian state would mark a major policy switch and risk antagonizing Israel. Uh-oh, the big Zionists are going to get you, boy, which insists such moves by foreign states are premature. No one will invest a cent. France's recognition of Palestinian statehood would be a step in the right direction, in line with safeguarding the rights of the Palestinian people and the 2-state solution, Palestinian Minister of State of Foreign Affairs Varsan Agabekian Shahin told AFP. Nearly 100 countries recognize a Palestinian state. In May 2024, Ireland, Norway, and Spain announced recognition, followed by Slovenia in June, in moves partly fueled by condemnation of Israel's bombing of Gaza that followed the October 7th attacks. But France would not be the most significant European power to recognize a Palestinian state, a move the U.S. has also long resisted. Oh, no. That's because Bibi's got his hand up the president's ass. Do my bidding. In Egypt, Macron held summit talks with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Jordan's King Abdullah II, and also made clear he was strongly opposed to any displacement or annexation in Gaza and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Trump has suggested turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, with the Palestinians moving elsewhere, a suggestion that has sparked bitter condemnation. Macron responded that the Gaza Strip was not a real estate project. Simplistic thinking sometimes doesn't help, he added in a message to Trump, said, perhaps it would be wonderful if one day it developed in an extraordinary way, but our responsibility is to save lives, restore peace, and negotiate a political framework. If all this doesn't exist, no one will invest. Today, no one will invest a cent in Gaza. Yeah, but they're getting there. They're trying to turn it into a parking lot. That's for fucking sure. So, in some of these countries, like you have the Iraqi resistance, which is not really associated with the Iraqi government, right? You have the Houthis are not exactly the Yemen government, but they pretty much run the show. And Hezbollah in Lebanon, they have at times been on opposing sides with the actual Lebanese government, but looks like they might be joining forces. I'm French. Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king? A shrubbery. Hezbollah ready for talks with Lebanese government on defense strategy. Yeah, with Turkey and Israel going after Syria, Lebanon's like, we better get our shit together. Hezbollah lawmaker Hassan Fadlallah said yesterday the Iran-aligned group is ready to enter talks with the Lebanese government on a national defense strategy with a focus on ensuring the removal of Israeli troops from Lebanon's territory. U.S.-backed President Joseph Aoun, who pledged to establish a state monopoly on the control of arms when he took office in January, is set to start talks with Hezbollah about its weapons arsenal, 3 Lebanese political sources told Reuters. One of the world's most heavily armed non-state groups, Hezbollah emerged severely weakened from the 2024 conflict with Israel, which was triggered by the Gaza war. The group suffered heavy losses, including the killing of its top leaders and thousands of its fighters. The blow was compounded when its ally Bashar al-Assad was toppled from power in Syria, cutting the group's supply lines from Iran. In a televised speech, Fadlallah said, we have expressed our readiness for dialogue to find a defense strategy for Lebanon. He said any meaningful discussion should focus on confronting Israeli aggressions and removing Israeli forces from southern Lebanon. We are in constant contact with the president when he calls for dialogue and sets national foundations for it. We are ready. Israel, which sent ground troops into South Lebanon during the war, has largely withdrawn. Not really. Although it decided in February not to leave 5 hilltop positions, so that's not largely withdrawn. Sorry. It said it intended eventually to hand them over to Lebanese troops once it was sure the security situation followed. A senior Hezbollah official told Reuters on Wednesday that the group was prepared to engage in talks with Aoun and its weapons if Israel withdrew from southern Lebanon and halted its military strikes, neither of which is ever going to happen. Hezbollah's arsenal, estimated before the latest conflict with Israel at more than 150,000 missiles and rockets, according to the CIA World Factbook, has long been a contentious issue. The group argues that its weapons are necessary to deter Israeli threats. Hezbollah has consistently rejected calls from its critics in Lebanon to disarm, describing its armament as essential for the defense of the country. Fadlallah also denied reports suggesting that the group is using Beirut port, which witnessed one of the strongest non-nuclear explosions ever in 2020, to smuggle weapons. Okay, boom. So yeah. They figured, okay, this division is not helping us at all. We have to come together right now over Zionism. Boom, diggity, boom, boom. It's a very musical show today. Sorry about that. Going back to antiwar.com, we got U.S. vetoes Gulf reconstruction for Syria, Lebanon, until Israel is satisfied, because they are the ones who run the show. This is Jason Ditz. I like Jason over there at Anti-War. He puts a little bit more of his own flavor in there. I mean, I like Dave and Kyle and those guys. They do straight journalism. Jason likes to put a little flavor in his, so... Wars are costly and often devastating to the local populace. The road to recovery can be long and difficult. This is even more true in Lebanon and Syria, with the U.S. engaged in international efforts to preclude any reconstruction funds being sent by other nations. Presented as an undeclared veto, the Trump administration has contacted multiple Gulf Arab countries to warn them they are not allowed to deliver any of the promised reconstruction aid to Lebanon or Syria until Israel's objectives are met. Israel invaded Lebanon in September and carried out a war that ended November 26 with a ceasefire. Since then, Israel has continued to attack Lebanon almost daily. Ceasefire. Cease meaning more. and has refused to withdraw troops from military outposts they set up inside Lebanon. Yeah, once they get in, they're there. And you're not getting the fuckers out. The intense damage in Lebanon includes villages of homes burnt by occupying Israeli forces and much of the agriculture infrastructure in southern Lebanon destroyed. Lebanese are just beginning to try to repair the farmland for planting, but there too they've come under Israeli attack. Syria's situation is somewhat different, coming off a protracted civil war which left the country in ruins and the HTS in power. In this case, Israel carried out attacks intermittently throughout the war, but it was only after the war ended that they invaded outright and have occupied parts of southern Syria. There is no sign they intend to slow these attacks or withdraw from newly occupied parts of Syria. The UN Security Council is meant to have an emergency was meant to have one yesterday to discuss the matter, though action seems unlikely. If anything, Israeli forces continue to advance even deeper into Syria. Syria looking a lot like Gaza right there. The U.S. decision to condition Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others being allowed to give aid to those countries on Israel's objectives is doubly challenging because Israel never makes clear what those objectives even are, and Israeli hostility to both nations seems to be an ongoing matter of policy, irrespective of the conditions on the ground. The Trump administration placed other conditions as well beyond Israeli acquiescence, which will be almost impossible to obtain. They want the Iran nuclear deal to be resolved and the China tariffs China tariff crisis. Both of those are plainly unrelated to Lebanon or Syria and completely out of the hands of their respective governments. This suggests the goal is to just prevent reconstruction altogether. It's not clear in practice whether the U.S. can really forbid a nation like Qatar from offering reconstruction aid to a war-torn nation. The administration seems to be assuming it can, however, and so far it's prevented aid from being released. Well, you know what they'll probably do if Qatar does send aid. Then Qatar is going to get 50% more tariffs, because everybody's getting tariffs. The smallest is 10%, but everybody, it's like Oprah with the cars, man. You get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff. Some sources are being quoted as the administration believing it can resolve all Israeli-Arab disagreements and the other problems too through this strategy. Yeah. It's further suggested that the administration intends, no matter what, to hold out aid on Lebanon through at least 2026 in hopes of swaying the election. Lebanon's parliament includes a number of Shiites, and the U.S. appears to hope that if they can keep Lebanon in a state of perpetual post-war misery, the voters will punish the Shiite candidates inside Israel, candidates since Israel invaded to attack Hezbollah, a Shiite organization. Whether the strategy will be successful remains to be seen, but the U.S. doesn't have a great track record with these kinds of gambles, and trying to impose an election result on Lebanon like this could easily backfire, especially when the reason post-war reconstruction isn't happening is because Trump is forbidding it. If anything, it could prove a boost to parties looking to resist U.S. imposition and chart a different course. Yeah, that's how the U.S. gets enemies. You know, I remember that idiot Bush Jr. said, they hate us for our freedoms. They hate us for our freedoms. I'm like, no, they hate you because you keep bombing the fuck out of them. They hate you because you send the CIA in and coup their government and put in a fucking puppet that they can't stand. That's why they hate you. And I'm sorry, Thomas Massey fans. That idiot seems to think and people are coming to America to get free shit. They're trying to get away from America's foreign policy is what they're doing. So he actually said that. He said, they're here for free stuff. Like, dude, you're supposed to be one of the smarter ones. What the fuck's wrong with you? He'll probably end up being the governor of Kentucky. I think he's going to run for that. U.S. and Russia holding talks in Istanbul, not Constantinople, on normalizing relations. U.S. and Russian officials held talks at the Russian consulate in Istanbul on Thursday that focused on normalizing diplomatic relations. The meeting marked the second round of normalization talks since the first was held in Istanbul on February 27th. According to Russia's TASS news agency, the talks lasted about 5.5 hours. The Russian delegation was headed by Alexander Darchiev, the Russian ambassador to the U.S., who said after the meeting that good progress was made toward normalizing the work of the two countries' diplomatic facilities. Sonata Coulter, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Russia and Central Europe, led the U.S. delegation. The State Department described the talks as constructive and said the two sides exchanged notes to finalize an understanding to ensure the stability of diplomatic banking for Russian and U.S. bilateral missions. Also on Thursday, the U.S. and Russia conducted a prisoner swap that involved Moscow freeing Ksenia Karolina, a Russian-American citizen who was serving a 12-year sentence for allegations that she was raising money to arm Ukraine, which appeared to be based on a donation she made to a U.S.-based Ukraine aid group. In exchange for Karolina, the U.S. released Arthur Petrov, a dual German-Russian citizen who was arrested in Cyprus in 2023 at the behest of the U.S. over allegations that he was exporting microelectronics to companies manufacturing weapons for Russia. While the U.S. and Russia appear to be making progress on diplomatic relations, the ceasefire in Ukraine remains elusive as fighting continues to rage despite U.S.-mediated talks. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce, oh Tammy, everything's Hamas, y'all, everything's Hamas, said on Thursday that there would be no serious changes to U.S.-Russia relations without a Ukraine ceasefire. I think that President Trump has been very clear that there is one thing on the table with Russia, which is the ceasefire, and that there is no other dynamic that is going to be addressed or facilitated until that deal is done with. Tammy said, oh, Tammy, I remember old Tammy. She lived up there. She lived up there by my Mima and Peepaw's house. I remember them. So, as we talk about Turkey and Israel, they're, basically fighting over Syria at this point. Sorry, HTS, you ain't in control of shit. Turkish-Israeli delegations meet in Azerbaijan for deconfliction talks. Let's talk about deconfliction. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about deconfliction. That was the original Salt and Pepper song, but they changed it to sex. Military delegations representing Turkey and Israel met in Azerbaijan on April 9th for talks to form a deconfliction mechanism aimed at preventing any clash between their two militaries in Syria, which is illegally occupied by both the Turkish and Israeli armies. It's like, look. We're both breaking the law here. Why do we got to add, this frustration between us to the mix, baby? There's plenty to share. This first meeting was held to avoid unwanted incidents in Syria, the Turkish defense minister announced on Thursday, adding that Israel must stop provocative attacks that undermine Syrian sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's our job. To ensure regular security, Israel must abandon its expansionist, occupying stance, and the international community must prevent this unlawfulness. Yeah, but the international community is ruled by a bunch of Zionists too, so good luck with that. According to Turkish Defense Ministry sources cited by Anadolu Agency, I think it has a Turkish paper, meetings with Israel will continue in the coming days to assess developments in Syria, and said that the Turkish military presence in Syria is at the official request of the Syrian government and aims to enhance its defensive capabilities and confront terrorism. They invited us. We're supposed to be here. We're the bouncer. Talks with the Syrian side are still ongoing with the aim of establishing Turkish military training bases. Israel is targeting Turkey with false accusations due to its adoption of aggressive foreign policy concepts, they added. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan announced on Wednesday there are technical contacts in place to prevent combat elements from misunderstanding each other. He added that Turkey does not attack unless provoked, but will act if instability in neighboring countries poses a threat. So they're like, we're not gonna go after you, but you start some shit next door, we're gonna have to clean up. He dismissed the idea of U.S. mediation, stating that further improvement of ties between Turkey and Israel depends on Tel Aviv halting its Gaza policies, which he said are based on civilian deaths and destruction. A senior Israeli official cited by Reuters and the Times of Israel also confirmed the Turkish-Israeli talks. CBC voter, happy Fish Friday. I know, right? Is McDonald's still doing that? They don't do the dollar fish fillets anymore, right? For before Ash Wednesday. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing they don't. Any activity that endangers Israel will threaten the rule of Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa. It added that the negotiations were first reported by Middle East Eye on April 7th. Look at that little cross-pollination there, Middle East Eye and the Cradle. That's what this site is. Israel recently launched several attacks on the TS Air Base, also known as the T4 base near Palmyra, the last of which took place on April 2nd. Other military strikes that belonged to Syria's former army were struck as part of Tel Aviv's violent campaign on airstrikes against the country. Oh, Stephanie, thank you, dear. Hey, booyah. Happy Friday, FRI. Little $4.99 there. That's sweet. Thank you, dear. Appreciate you. Fuckhead McGee, Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly informed his counterparts that Israel had a limited window to strike the T4 space before Turkey could position its assets there, and said that once Turkey moved in, the base would be off limits to Israeli operations, according to two Western sources who spoke with Middle East Eye. So BB's like, we better blow the fuck out of that place before they move in. Middle East Eye had reported one day before the Israeli strikes that the Turkish military had been preparing plans to take control of the T4 air base. Plans included the installation of air defense systems at the site. The Israeli bombardment took place just a day before Ankara, that's the capital of Turkey, was set to deploy inspection teams to the site for an initial assessment for plans to beef up the air base, according to the report. The Israeli Army radio said after the attacks that the strikes were a message to Ankara. Netanyahu believes progress has been made on reaching a deconfliction agreement with Turkey following the airstrikes, and negotiations are ongoing, the sources informed Middle East Eye. Since the ousting of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government, Israel has waged a violent campaign of hundreds of airstrikes targeting sites belonging to the former Syrian military. It has also expanded its illegal occupation in the country and taken over large swaths of southern Syria, announcing plans to remain there indefinitely and demanding a complete demilitarization of the area. Why? Because they're a bunch of fucking assholes. Tel Aviv has issued several warnings that any threat to it posed by Syria's new authorities will be met with force. However, the government of Syria's interim president Ahmad al-Sharaa, which is backed by Ankara, has repeatedly signaled that it's not looking for a confrontation with Israel, probably because 80 to 90% of their shit militarily got blowed up. Turkey is looking to train the extremist-dominated armed forces of Sharaa's government in new bases it plans to establish in the country. The Turkish military has been illegally occupying Syria since 2016. Illegal occupation. Like glorified squatters, if you will. Staying in Turkey, court order release of 107 students held over protests. We're going to get to more Turkey news in the propaganda watch, I believe. Turkish courts on Thursday ordered the release of at least 107 students arrested during massive protests against the jailing of Istanbul's popular mayor, a lawyer told AFP. Nearly 2,000 people, including more than 300 students, have been arrested in a crackdown on the protests, the largest demonstrations in Turkey in more than a decade, after the March 19th arrests of Mayor Ekrem Imamoglu on graft charges. Graft. Was he like putting two plants together? What's graft? I don't get it. Imamoglu, a leading opposition figure, is the chief political rival to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Lawyers and politicians supportive of Imamoglu have slammed police brutality towards students arrested for taking part in the demonstrations. Two Istanbul courts ordered 107 students released on Thursday, lawyer Ferhat Güzel told AFP. The court also lifted house arrest ordered for 25 students. He added, Maramatos. The majority of the young protesters, most of them aged about 20, were attending rallies for the first time in their lives, but found themselves in the dock as a result, while their anxious parents looked on. I guess the dock means jail. Turkin Okar voiced happiness at the news as she traveled to Silivri, a huge prison complex on the outskirts of Istanbul, to welcome her 24-year-old son, Ridvan, who was arrested during last month's rallies. I'm very happy, just like other mothers, she told AFP briefly. We passed through really bad days. With the system overwhelmed, family and friends were often left in the dark when their children were first arrested, as they did not know where they were initially being held. Many of the parents spent Eid al-Fitr, the holiday marking the end of Ramadan, without their children. The arrest of students also became a political dispute between Erdogan's government and Imamoglu's main opposition, CHP party. Erdogan on Wednesday accused the opposition party of darkening the lives of young people. Darkening the lives of young... What, you turned him into Batman? Some of the students were detained during clashes with police outside City Hall last month. If the lives of those young people are darkened, it is again you, as the CHP, who darkened those lives. Fucking California Highway Patrol, I swear to God. You call the youth to the streets, have them attack the police, then you shamelessly shed crocodile tears, he added, pointing to CHP leader Oscar Azel, or as he's known by his pals, OZ squared. He will not let you exploit the youth of this, or we will not let you exploit the youth of this country. I don't know if they call him OC squared. I would call him OC squared, because that sounds cooler than Oscar Azel. In an interview with, it says wit. I love it when they fuck up. In an interview with AFP, y'all, OC Squared said the Turkish opposition would fight until the end against Erdogan, calling for rallies in an Istanbul district every Wednesday. OZ Squared also demanded snap polls that would show the biggest no-confidence vote in history against the Turkish leader, which is not surprising after all those fucking arrests. What is it? We got two more. Yeah. So, really disturbing news out of, two stories that are pretty disturbing involving Sudan. This first one with the United Arab Emirates, as the UAE rejects Sudan's claim in a UN court that it's breaching genocide convention by funding rebels. Yes, it's not just genocide in Gaza, folks. The United Arab Emirates argued at the UN's top court on Thursday that it has no jurisdiction to rule on a claim of genocide lodged by Sudan. The UAE told the judges at the ICJ that the allegations the country is breaching the Genocide Convention by arming and funding the rebel paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, were a misuse of the institution. Sudan wants the Hague-based court to issue emergency orders known as provisional measures, including telling the UAE to do all it can to prevent the killing and other crimes targeting the Masalit people. The idea that the UAE is somehow the driver of this reprehensible conflict in Sudan could not be further from the truth, said Reem Katate, a senior official at the UAE's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She described the case as the most recent iteration of the applicant's misuse of our international institutions as a stage from which to attack the UAE. Both Sudan and the UAE are signatories to the 1948 Genocide Convention. The United Arab Emirates, however, has a caveat to part of the treaty which legal experts say makes it unlikely the case will proceed. The ICJ has previously said that this kind of reservation is allowed and is a barrier to a case going forward. The court is most likely to say the same thing in this case, meaning that this case will not go forward. Melanie O'Brien, an associate professor of international law at the University of Western Australia and an expert on the convention, told the AP, no free no AP plugs. Sudan descended into a deadly conflict in mid-April 2023 when long-simmering tensions between its military and paramilitary rebels broke out in the capital, Khartoum, and spread to other regions. Both the RSF and Sudan's military have been accused of abuses. The UAE, a federation of 7 sheikdoms on the Arabian Peninsula, and a U.S. ally, has been repeatedly accused of arming the RSF, something it has strenuously denied, despite evidence to the contrary. See, they'll deny it, but then there's evidence. But then when they'll accuse, this is not just them, this is anybody with a loud mouth in some sort of government role. They'll say, oh yeah, this happened, and then they got no proof. Or they said, no, this didn't happen, but then there's proof, and they're like, Like when the IDF said they fired on those ambulances because their lights weren't on, and turns out the lights were on and all this shit. And they had to walk it back. Conflict Observatory, a monitoring group which is funded by the United States, the U.S. State Department, has identified aircraft, it says, carried UAE arms transfers to the RSF. Those flights went through Marshal Idris Deby International Airport in Amduras, Chad. These names. The UAE says the purpose of the flights was to support a local hospital. In January, the U.S. Treasury Department announced that RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Daglo Musa, also known as Hamedti, had been targeted for sanctions along with 7 RSF-owned companies in the UAE. That came as the U.S. declared the RSF rebels are committing genocide. The U.S. declared the RSF rebels are committing genocide. So they're committing genocide, but Israel's not, because Israel, has their hand up their ass. The war has killed more than 24,000 people and driven over 14 million people, about 30% of the population, from their homes, according to the UN. An estimated 3.2 million Sudanese have escaped to neighboring countries. The Sudanese armed forces have broadly retaken Khartoum from the RSF. Last month, the military said it had recaptured Khartoum's international airport. And finally, in our news block, Sudan's RSF accused of sickening sexual violence on women and girls. This is from Amnesty International. Members of Sudan's paramilitary RSF have been subjecting women and girls to horrific sexual violence and gang rape as part of their strategy in the country's civil war, according to Amnesty International, a global rights group. In a 30-page report published yesterday, Amnesty accused the RSF of inflicting widespread sexual violence to humiliate, assert control, and displace communities across the country. Since April 15th, 2023, the RSF has been battling the Sudanese armed forces for control of the country, resulting in an armed conflict that has also given rise to what the United Nations described as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. While the military reclaimed the capital last month, the country remains essentially divided into two. Both forces led the ouster of President Omar al-Bashir in 2019. 2 years later, in 2021, they joined forces again to remove a transitional government. They split in April 2023, igniting the current civil war. The RSF's atrocities, including rape, gang rape, and sexual slavery, amount to war crimes and possible crimes against humanity, Amnesty said. The RSF's assaults on Sudanese women and girls are sickening, depraved, and aimed at inflicting maximum humiliation. Dipros Muchena, a senior Amnesty official for regional human rights impact, said that the RSF targeted civilians, particularly women and girls, with unimaginable cruelty during this war, much like the U.S. forces did in Vietnam. Amnesty documented at least 36 cases of women and girls as young as 15 being subjected by RSF forces to rape, gang rape, and other forms of sexual violence. The attacks were committed in 4 Sudanese states from April 2023 to October of last year. Violations include raping a mother after tearing away her breastfeeding baby, and the 30-day sexual enslavement of a woman in Khartoum, as well as several severe beatings, torture with hot liquid or sharp blades, and murder. Jesus Christ. One woman, a 34-year-old mother of 5, described how in May 2023 she was abducted from her home by 7 men wearing the RSF uniform and taken to a house where another 3 women were also being held. I was detained in that house for 30 days where they kept raping me almost every day, she said. Another woman raped in Durman said, women are not leading or participating in this war, but it is the women who are suffering the most, right? Like the women and children that are always getting bombed and murdered. They're not Hamas or Hezbollah or anything like that. They're just people, you know, and these poor people are getting caught in it too. In October, a UN fact-finding mission found widespread sexual violence during Sudan's war. It accused the paramilitaries of being behind the large majority of cases. The RSF rejected the accusations as propaganda. Both the RSF and the Army are under U.S. sanctions and accused of war crimes since the war began. The RSF has also been accused of looting, taking over civilian homes, and committing other forms of abuses. The war has killed tens of thousands of people, and according to the UN, displaced about 12 million, as we told you. Amnesty has urged the international community to stop the RSF's atrocities by stemming the flow of weapons into Sudan. We're talking to you, UAE, pressuring the leadership to end sexual violence and holding perpetrators, including top commanders, to account. On Wednesday, Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farham Al Saud and U.S. Secretary of State Aquaman called on the warring sides to resume peace talks. The diplomats agreed that the Sudanese armed forces and rapid support forces must return to peace talks, protect civilians, open humanitarian corridors, and return to civilian governments, the State Department's statement said following the meeting. The U.S. under Joe Biden and Saudi Arabia have previously sponsored several unsuccessful rounds of negotiations to end the bloody conflict. So, yeah. And that's the thing. When they say war is hell, that's what one of the things they're talking about are these psychotic atrocities that are happening. And, spirit of the age, good to see you. Yeah, it's just the degradation of humanity, and it just seems to be getting worse. There's pockets of humanity still around, but they're getting suppressed. You know, I mean, if we want to stop things, we want to change it, we got to stop. We got to shut shit down. I can't say it enough. These weekend fun little protests where everybody feels good about themselves, and they're not going to cut it. All right, you're not drawing people from around the world. You need a world strike. And if that happens, that would be great. But I definitely don't see it in my lifetime. From the I already knew that news. Gray Zone had an expose of sorts as they had leaked audio from AIPAC. And guess what? Shocking. AIPAC controls Trump's national security officials. I know, shocking, isn't it?
Sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media are true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Like I said, this is from the Gray Zone. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's pretty lengthy. There's a pretty lengthy article here, so I encourage you to go to the Gray Zone and read this for yourself. There's also audio, about 6 minutes worth of this. AIPAC leader boasts of special access to top Trump NatSec officials in leaked audio. See, they've already had access to these people, Democrat or Republican, but now they're just being brazen and just boasting about it at this point. The Gray Zone has obtained audio of an off-the-record session from the 2025 Congressional Summit of AIPAC, the main U.S. lobbying arm of the State of Israel. Recorded by an attendee of the panel discussion, the audio features AIPAC's new CEO, Elliot Brandt, describing how his organization has cultivated influence with 3 top national security officials in the Trump administration. Aquaman National Security Director Mike Waltz, that's Signal Man, and CI Director John Ratcliffe, who not to be confused with the guy that was on Cheers, and how it believes it can gain access to their internal discussions. Joining Brandt on the panel was Dana Stroul, formerly the highest-ranking civilian overseeing Middle East issues in the Biden administration's Department of Defense. Stroul made it clear that defending Israel's strategic operatives from within the U.S. government was a top priority, arguing that Washington should deepen its mutually beneficial special relationship with its strong partner in Tel Aviv. Stroul dismissed the bloodbath in Gaza as a result of supposed Hamas tactics, which supposedly aimed to maximize the amount of children killed by Israel. Jesus Christ. At the same time, she and her fellow Israel lobbyists fretted about the impact of the post-October 7th war on public support for the self-proclaimed Jewish state. She was particularly troubled by Senator Bernie Sanders' attempts to force votes on military aid packages to Israel, which, in her view, should never be debated in the open. Why not? Another unidentified AIPAC panelist worried that pro-Palestinian academics could eventually influence AI knowledge systems, leading to a dangerous shift in national security policy unless they were decisively suppressed. The congressional summit was permeated with anxiety as AIPAC leaders told rank-and-file members to hide their badges when they left the Marriott Hotel for fear they would be confronted by anti-genocide protesters. That's interesting. I think that's pretty much the gray zone's words. They're not theirs. Other than a handful of sessions, such as a keynote address by Israeli shitburger Benjamin Netanyahu, the conference was strictly off the record. With the cameras off, AIPAC leadership provided unusually candid details of their activities. In one revealing admission, Brandt explained how he and his lobbying organization groomed the future CIA director and other top Trump officials as pro-Israel assets. Oh, look at that. That looks like hell, doesn't it? I was going to say there's rainbows. There's no rainbows. Elliot Brandt was promoted to executive director of AIPAC last year, making him one of the most powerful lobbyists in Washington, though he's largely unknown to the American public. Brandt has spent around 3 decades building relationships on Capitol Hill. This was a key, he suggested, to cultivating the future leaders of America's national security state as loyal servants of Israel. Referring to Aquaman as National Security Director Captain Signal and Elise Stefanik, some chick, I guess that's that New York broad, whose nomination to serve as the U.S. ambassador to the UN was suddenly withdrawn to preserve the GOP's majority in the House of Representatives. Brandt explained to AIPAC members, those 3 people have something in common. They all served in Congress. Oh, really? After relying heavily on pro-Israel donors to fuel their campaigns for office, they all have relationships with key AIPAC leaders from their communities, said the AIPAC CEO. So the lines of communication are good should there be something questionable or curious, and we need access on the conversation. Yeah, so Biden's crew was sucking Zionist dick pretty hard, but Trump's boys are sucking the dick and tickling the ball sack, too, at the same time. Maybe a little finger up the butt, too, if you've been a really good boy. Brandt's comments corroborate Representative Thomas Massey's claim that each member of Congress is expected to answer to an AIPAC person. Yeah. The AIPAC director's reference to his organization's access to presumably internal national security discussions contains ominous echoes of past espionage scandals in which AIPAC employees were accused of forking classified information over to Israeli intelligence. In 2004, now there's probably just a straight pipeline. You don't have to go through any middlemen anymore. In 2004, for example, the FBI arrested a Pentagon researcher named Larry Franklin who had provided classified documents related to Iran to 2 AIPAC staffers, Keith Weissman and Steve Rosen, who then delivered the information to Israeli intelligence. That December, the FBI raided AIPAC's offices and seized a computer belonging to Brandt's predecessor, Howard Corr. They wouldn't raid AIPAC's offices now. Doesn't matter who the president. In the end, Franklin received a slap on the wrist from the government while Weissman and Rosen were fired by AIPAC. In his remarks to the AIPAC Congressional Summit, Brandt also pointed to CIA Director John Ratcliffe as an important point of contact. You know that one of the first candidates I ever met with as an AIPAC professional in my job when he was a candidate for Congress was a guy named John Ratcliffe. my AIPAC profession as an AIPAC professional. That sounds like someone who sells Amway. He was challenging a longtime member of Congress in Dallas. I said, this guy looks like he could win the race. And we go talk to him. He had a good understanding of issues, and a couple of weeks ago, he took the oath as the CIA director, for crying out loud. This is a guy that we had a chance to speak to, so there are a lot. I wouldn't call them lifelines, but there are lifelines in there. There's Dana Stroul there. Lovely, lovely person. Dana Stroul works as the director of research at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, a neoconservative think tank that was originally founded as the research arm of AIPAC. Stroul previously served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East in the Biden administration's Pentagon. See a little crossover there? Presiding over policy toward Iran, Syria, and virtually every other issue of importance to Israel. In a closed session at the Marriott Hotel, seated before an audience of AIPAC members, Stroul sounded more like a veteran Israel lobbyist than a U.S. national security expert, arguing at length that any and all U.S. military aid packages to Israel provided a net benefit to American empire, while dismissing well-documented Israeli atrocities in the besieged Gaza Strip as a result of clever Hamas human shield tactics. I remember the human shields. That was a thing. Yeah, Judeo rainbow. According to an attendee at the AIPAC Congressional Summit, Stroul began her remarks by recalling the frantic hours after she received word of the October 7th attacks. Personally summoned to work by then Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Stroul described how she rushed her child to the Pentagon's in-house daycare center so she could get to the work of surging munitions to the Israeli military. She said she worked continuously for the next 48 hours, helping the Pentagon transfer weapons from its own stockpiles to Israeli bases. The AIPAC attendee was unable to capture audio of these comments by Stroul. Even as she worked to ensure that Israel had all it needed to transform Gaza into a moonscape, Stroul privately acknowledged that the Israeli military might be committing war crimes, according to a series of emails leaked to Reuters. On October 13th, 2023, Stroul filed off an email to top White House, State Department, and Pentagon officials about a phone call she had just held with the International Red Cross Committee's Middle East Director, Fabrizio Carboni. ICRC is not ready to say this in public, but is raising private alarm that Israel is close to committing war crimes, Stroul wrote. Their main line is that it is impossible for 1 million civilians to move this fast. Since recognizing the likelihood of Israeli atrocities, Stroul has apparently kept her conscience clear by blaming Hamas, like her buddy Tammy, for the over 50,000 civilians Israel has killed in Gaza. Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. I think if you're in Iran, or you are the Houthis, or any of these other proxy terrorist groups, and frankly, probably the Russians and the Chinese, probably, just throwing that shit in there, she told AIPAC members at the 2025 Congressional Summit, you're looking at the ways in which the international community so quickly moved on from October 7th, and what happened to Israel, and why Israel is at war. And you're probably taking away that a great tactic in war is to put as many civilians on the front lines as possible so that they can just get killed. And so the Hamas tactic has strategic effects because Israel finds itself isolated on the international stage. And it's a tactic by Hamas to both terrorize on the global stage and to for propagating disinformation. She didn't realize she was deflecting. Stroul went on to suggest that the Israeli military was superior in ways to the U.S. military. This is a mutually beneficial relationship. This is not just about what the United States gives Israel. The former Pentagon official declared, this is a partner that has flipped the script on what can be accomplished with military force in a way the United States military never conceived of doing against Iran and Iran's proxies across the Middle East. We get as much intelligence from Israel as we give to Israel. They're using our F-35 more than we are using it. I guess they're planes, I guess. Yeah, that's Stroul, this lady Stroul. So yeah, there's more of this. I suggest to just go to the grayzone.com or grayzone.com and you'll find You're going to find a lot of information you already knew. It's just been corroborated by audio. Denver, what's up, buddy? Fuck anybody that supports Israel, and fuck Trump, and fuck Bibi, and fuck Zionists, and fuck you too if you support me. Yeah, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. Fuck you. You're all out. Yeah, and they have the audio on there too, so you can listen to it for yourself. So, good old U.S., the home of the land of the free, home of the brave. But the U.S. to screen migrants for anti-Semitic posts. Can't come into the country if you know how shitty Israel is. The U.S. immigration will review applicants' social media accounts and deny visas or residency to individuals who post content the U.S. President Donald Trump administration deems anti-Semitic, according to an announcement the agency made on Wednesday. Immigration agents can use social media posts interpreted as supporting anti-Semitic terrorism to deny applications for student visas or green cards, according to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Posts considered anti-Semitic will include social media activity expressing support for militant groups designated as terrorist organizations by the U.S., such as Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Houthis, USCIS said in a statement on Wednesday. The agency will consider social media content that indicates an alien endorsing, espousing, promoting, or supporting anti-Semitic terrorism, anti-Semitic terrorist organizations, or other anti-Semitic activity as a negative factor in determining immigration beliefs, the statement said. Keep that word in mind, beliefs. All right, that'll come in handy in the next one of our next stories. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin, said that there is no room for the U.S. to take in the rest of the world's terrorist sympathizers, adding, "We are under no obligation to admit them or let them stay here. But all you Israelis, come on in, baby." She added that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has made it clear that anyone who believes they can come to the U.S. and invoke the First Amendment, the constitutional protection of free speech, to justify advocating anti-Semitic violence or terrorism is mistaken. "Think again. You're not welcome here," McLaughlin said. The policy takes effect immediately and applies to both student visas and applications for permanent resident green cards to stay in the U.S. Trump campaigned last year on promises to tighten immigration policy and reverse what he viewed as his predecessor Joe Biden's lenient approach to the issue. Since taking office in January, Trump has expanded the expedited removal of illegal immigrants and denied federal funding to sanctuary jurisdictions. He's declared a national emergency, thus allowing the deployment of the armed forces to secure the border. His administration is expanding detention facilities to hold up to 30,000 migrants. Trump administration has already targeted foreign students participating in anti-Israel protests on U.S. college campuses as part of its broader deportation efforts, dispatching immigrant agents to detain them. Aquaman said late last month that he had stripped roughly 300 international students of their visas and was doing so on a daily basis. The crackdown follows a wave of pro-Palestinian protests that erupted last year at universities across the U.S. The U.S. administration has also cut millions of dollars in federal funding to leading universities, including Harvard and Columbia, accusing them of failing to adequately address anti-Semitism during the campus protests over the Gaza war, and basically saying, why'd you let these motherfuckers protest? What's wrong with you? Our Zionist masters hate that shit. Apparently they hate him at Stanford too, as pro-Palestinian protesters at Stanford have been charged with felonies. 12 protesters were charged on Thursday with felony vandalism for their actions during a June 2024 pro-Palestinian protest at Stanford University, in which demonstrators barricaded themselves inside the office of the school president. Those charged, ranging in age from 19 to 32, entered the building and demonstrated a conspiracy to occupy it, prosecutors said, adding that at least one suspect entered the building by breaking a window. Dun, dun, dun. All suspects wore masks, they said. Dozens of other protesters surrounding the building and chanted, "Palestine will be free." At the time, the university said 13 people were arrested during the protest. One police officer was injured. Yeah, right. He probably tripped over a donut or something. And the building suffered extensive damage. Protesters renamed the building Dr. Adnan's office in honor of Adnan al-Bursh, a Palestinian doctor who died in an Israeli prison after months of detention. Those charged could not immediately be reached, and it was not clear if they retained legal representation. Trump's administration, as we told you, is threatened to withhold federal funds from universities, including Stanford, over allegations they failed to properly suck and lick the balls, the tiny itty-bitty pea balls of Israel. Protesters say their criticism of Israel's military assault on Gaza has been wrongly conflated with that anti-Semitism. It's not wrongly conflated. It's they know exactly what they're doing. It's all propaganda, my friends. Pressed for evidence against Mahmoud Khalil. Government cites its power to deport people for beliefs. There, you see, remember telling you about beliefs? Yeah. Facing a deadline from an immigration judge to turn over evidence for its attempted deportation of Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil, the federal government has instead submitted a brief memo signed by Aquaman himself, citing the Trump administration's authority to expel non-citizens whose presence in the country damages U.S. foreign policy interests. The two-page memo, which was obtained by the AP, does not allege any criminal conduct by Khalil, a legal permanent U.S. resident and graduate student who served as spokesperson for campus activists last year during the demonstrations. Rather, Rubio wrote Khalil could be expelled for his beliefs. Yeah, calling George Orwell. He said that while Khalil's activities were otherwise lawful, letting him remain in the country would undermine U.S. policy to combat anti-Semitism around the world and in the U.S., in addition to efforts to protect Jewish students from harassment and violence in the United States. Condoning anti-Semitic conduct and disruptive protests in the U.S. would severely undermine that significant foreign policy objective, Rubio wrote in the undated memo. The submission was filed Wednesday after Judge Jamie Comins ordered the government to produce its evidence against Khalil ahead of a hearing Friday, which is today, on whether it can continue detaining him during immigration proceedings. Attorneys for Khalil said the memo proved the Trump administration was targeting Mahmoud's free, I think I've been saying his name wrong, Mahmoud's free speech rights about Palestine. After a month of hiding the ball since Mahmoud's late night unjust arrest in New York and taking him away to the middle of the fucking nowhere, BFE, Louisiana, immigration authorities have finally admitted that they have no case whatsoever against him, the attorneys Mark Vanderholt and Johnny Sinotis said in a joint statement. There's not a single shred of proof that Mahmoud's presence in America poses any threat, they added. A Department of Homeland Security, well, he's telling the truth. That's a threat. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin, remember her, did not respond to questions about whether it had additional evidence against Khalil. Writing in an emailed statement, DHS did file evidence, but immigration court dockets are not available to the public. Right. Yeah, we filed evidence. Khalil, a 30-year-old Palestinian by ethnicity who was born in Syria, was arrested March 8th in New York and taken to a detention center in Louisiana. He recently finished his coursework for a master's degree at Columbia School of International Affairs. His wife, an American citizen, is due to give birth this month. Khalil has adamantly rejected allegations of anti-Semitism, accusing the Trump administration in a letter sent from jail last month of targeting me as part of a broader strategy to suppress dissent. That's exactly right. Knowing fully that this moment transcends my individual circumstances, he added, I hope nonetheless to be free to witness the birth of my firstborn child. Though Rubio's memo references additional documents, including a subject profile of Mahmoud Khalil and a letter from the Department of Homeland Security, the government did not submit those documents to the immigration court, according to Khalil's lawyers. The memo also calls for the deportation of a second lawful permanent resident whose name is redacted in the filing. The Trump administration has pulled billions of dollars in government funding from universities, as we told you about that. To get the money back, the administration has been telling universities to punish protesters and make other changes. Like, don't let those people tell the truth about our genocidal buddies. Syrup of Ipecac. Gross. And they've been revoking visas of international students who criticize Israel. He said that he was accused of leading activities aligned to Hamas, referring to the militant group, But the government has not produced any evidence linking Khalil to Hamas or anybody, and made no reference to the group in their most recent filing. Meanwhile, lawyers for Yuncio Chung, another Columbia student and lawful U.S. resident whom the Department of Homeland Security seeks to deport, included the Rubio letter as an exhibit in court papers filed late Thursday in Manhattan federal court. The lawyers asked a judge to let them obtain documents from the government related to the targeting of their client, including any that reference her by name related to the State Department's decision to move to deport her. Chung, who was arrested on a misdemeanor charge at a recent sit-in at Barnard College, protesting the expulsion of students who participated in pro-Palestinian activism, has been ordered freed while her legal challenge is pending. Yeah, so your beliefs are going to get you 86th out of the country if you're a non-born here citizen. And who knows, that's probably going to end up, they're going to find ways to get people who were born here, to get them kicked out too, or sent to El Salvador probably. We told you about how Turkey was ordered to release 107 people. Well, they didn't quite learn their lesson. Turkey seeks 3-year jail terms for journalists covering Imamoglu protests. Yeah, with the two fingers like that, that means fuck you. That's like some British European, the bird. I think he's shooting the bird with this one, and he's doing the two fingers with this one. So he's like Mr. International. A Turkish public prosecutor is seeking 3-year jail terms for 7 journalists arrested while covering protests against the jailing of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. The Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office filed an indictment against Bülent Kılıç, Kurtuluş Ari, Yasin Akgül, Zeynep Kure, Gökhan Kam, Ali Onur Tosun, and Hayri Tunç for violating a law prohibiting participation in unsanctioned protests. Parades. Sanctioned protests are parades. The journalists were arrested on March 24th for covering a protest outside City Hall in the Istanbul area of Saraşehir. Against Imamoglu's arrest, they were released days later under judicial supervision. I'm going to say right now, I'm glad I don't work in Turkish media, because these names would kill me. The indictment stated that the journalists had declared that their presence at the protest was within the scope of journalism and photojournalism activities, but that no evidence could be obtained during the file review to verify their statements to that fact. At least 139 people arrested following the Saraçhane protests have been indicted by the prosecutor's office. The Turkish Journalist Syndicate, the TGS, criticized the indictment on the tweeters. Neither journalism nor participating in meetings and demonstrations as a constitutional right is a crime, they wrote. Despite an official ban, demonstrations have swept Turkey since Imamoglu, a popular opposition leader and upcoming presidential candidate who could potentially challenge President Erdogan, was arrested on March 19th. Thousands of people have been arrested in response, while the government said more than 150 police officers have been wounded. Yeah. Although it's Turkey, they may just beat the fuck out of those guys. Turkey has regularly been described as the world's worst jailer of journalists by media freedom organizations. Yeah, you don't want that as your tourism slogan. We're the world's worst jailer of journalists. President Erdogan's ruling Justice and Development Party, the AKP, and previous Turkish administrations have long been accused of suppressing press freedom, with crackdowns on critical journalists escalating dramatically after the 2016 coup attempt. If you haven't seen that movie, well, Midnight Run, I think it's from the 70s. It's about this guy. He gets thrown in a Turkish prison, and because he bought hash or something like that. It's a fucked up movie. Erol Underoglu, Turkey chief for Reporters Without Borders, told Middle East Eye that there was deep concern over the impunity the security services enjoyed when it came to targeting media workers. Looking at the high scale of demonstrations, we've noticed a radical and extremely concerning type of intervention on media exercise, which has once again shown to us that the right to report freely is maybe the last priority of the government and law enforcement, or probably no priority at all. Re-education camps. No, it's called Midnight Express. It's like that song, the song Midnight. It's from the. Fun fact, if you didn't know this, so when you listen to Art Bell or the beginning of Coast to Coast AM, it has the dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum dum. That was from that movie Midnight Express. So, a little movie trivia there for you. Come on, where are you going? Let's see. Underoglu, who himself faced prison for his media work, said the arrest of Agence France press journalists also proved that those working for international media outlets had no extra protection compared with local ones. The only reason I remember that movie, Max, is because there's one part where he pushes a guard or something, and the guard hits like this coat rack, and one of the hooks goes right in the back of his head, and he's just like, that's a brutal movie. It's a brutal movie. It's a good movie, but it's fucking brutal. Thousands more Turkish students protested in Istanbul and the capital Ankara following a lull during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Imamoglu was last month confirmed by the People's Republican Party, the CHP, as their candidate for the next presidential election. The mayor's poll rating suggests he could potentially defeat Erdogan and put an end to the AKP's more than 23 years of rule. Yeah, they really don't want this guy to run because they pretty sure they think he'll win. That's why they tried to revoke his college degree, and apparently you can't run for president in Turkey unless you have a college degree. United States, you just have to have a heartbeat, and and a loud mouth, apparently. Erdogan has accused the CHP of seeking to overthrow his government through non-democratic means by stoking demonstrations against them. He tried to overthrow the government using legal protests. What the fuck's wrong with you? Erdogan's lawyer, Hüseyin Aydin, on Tuesday filed a criminal complaint against CHP leader OC Squared. There's our buddy back after he accused the president of leading a junta in Turkey. I once had a turkey in junta one time. It was delicious. It was very crispy on the outside, juicy in the middle. Put a little gravy on there with some mashed potatoes. A criminal complaint was filed to the General Prosecutor's Office in Ankara for insulting the president. OC Squared told a meeting of his party on Sunday that Turkey is governed by a junta that is afraid of elections, afraid of its opponents, and afraid of the nation. Erdogan is the president of a junta that targets those who have the support of the people and those who could become his rivals. Article 299 of the Turkish Penal Code, giggity, makes insulting the president a crime and has been used thousands of times in recent decades, often targeting government critics. They had that fucking law here. All of us would be in jail. We'd be like, fuck, man. They'd have to make Escape from U.S., get Kurt Russell in there, you know. What else we got in here? Got a few more here. So, the BDS movement is targeting Microsoft because Microsoft's a bunch of fucking Israel-loving motherfuckers. BDS calls for boycott of Xbox after Microsoft fires pro-Palestine employees. The official Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, that's BDS, movement has called for a boycott of Microsoft's Xbox and all of its gaming products, accusing the company of complicity in Israel's illegal occupation links to its prison system. The boycott includes Microsoft gaming consoles from the brand, Xbox, Game Pass, Candy Crush, really? Call of Duty, well, that was kind of a given. And Minecraft, really? And gaming accessories, which they say generate a significant income for the company. Candy Crush. The urge to ramp up pressure on the brand comes after the company's actions were thrust into light when the two employees launched a protest at the 50th anniversary celebration to denounce the company's work in supplying artificial intelligence technology to the Israeli military. I think we did a story on that. Microsoft later fired the two employees after one of them, Ibtihal Abu Saad, walked up to a stage at the event and said, "You claim that you care about using AI for good, but Microsoft sells AI weapons to the Israeli military. 50,000 people have died and Microsoft powers this genocide in our region," she added. I believe that's her right there. BDS echoes the comments in a statement which states Microsoft partners with the apartheid regime of Israel and its prison systems. It provides the Israeli military with Azure cloud and AI services that are central to accelerating Israel's genocide of 2.3 million Palestinians in the illegally occupied Gaza Strip. Show Me Your Tits is the best part of Midnight Express. That movie is so fucking brutal, dude. By boycotting the Xbox brand, we're pressuring Microsoft to end its complicity in Israel's genocide, occupation, and apartheid against Palestine, the statement adds. After being dismissed from Microsoft, Abu Saad has been vocal on her social media platforms, reiterating calls for the boycott of the company. In a video posted on her Instagram account, she says, "Many people have been asking how they can support, so I have two requests. Boycott all Microsoft products from Xbox to Candy Crush." You should boycott Candy Crush anyway, because all that is just like a mindfuck game to keep you distracted from real shit. Any product you use, boycott them all. The goal behind that is to tell Microsoft, we will not financially support you, nor will we use your products unless you adopt more humane principles. I also ask that you spread this boycott call with your friends, family, and colleagues. My second ask, if anyone watching this video is in a similar position as mine, meaning they work at a company with similar inhumane principles, I ask you to speak up and raise your voice, whether from the inside or from the outside, she continues. In a follow-up video with Islamic scholar Dr. Omar Suleiman, she states she was prompted to take action because of her spiritual fear and appearing complicit before God through her work at the organization. I knew that just staying at Microsoft and staying silent and keeping my prestigious, comfortable job was going to lead to that outcome on the day of judgment, she said. Yeah. Xbox has long been... hang on just a second. Yeah, okay. Xbox has long been linked to Israel, with the Israeli firm Prime Sense developing the technology which is used in the Kinect camera. They still use that. That's like from like Xbox 360 or some shit. Allowing games on the console to be played through body movement rather than a joystick or controller. A previous joint investigation between The Guardian, 972 magazine, and Hebrew language outlet Local Call found that Microsoft deepened their relationship with Israel's defense establishment since October 7th, the start of the war on Gaza. The investigation also found that Microsoft provided the Israeli army with storage and computing services, agreeing on at least $10 million in deals to provide thousands of hours of technical support for the military while they were bombing Gaza. The report says Microsoft have supplied a suite of communications and messaging systems for managing databases of potential airstrike targets. The calls for the boycott amid the ongoing war on Gaza, which has killed close to 62,000 Palestinians, with the actual toll expected to be much higher. The war has leveled entire neighborhoods, plunged Gaza into a deep humanitarian crisis, and displaced almost all of the population. Hello. Boop. Meanwhile, a UK university drops their case against students over shared Middle East Eye posts. So just sharing posts. He got arrested. Or at least, yeah. The University of Essex has dropped a case against 6 students threatened with expulsion for sharing posts from Middle East Eye that marked the death of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Last year, the university began an investigation into the students after a series of complaints were lodged against them, AIPAC, over content posted on the university's Palestine Solidarity Society Instagram page following Haniyeh's death. Haniyeh was assassinated in Iran during a visit last July, with Israel confirming days later that it had killed the Hamas leader. The university's investigation accused the students of breaking the student code of conduct for allegedly supporting a prescribed group, a claim denied by all 6 students, by sharing news reports related to Haniyeh's death. So apparently just sharing the news of his death can get you booted out of Essex. A document compiled by the university as evidence against the students and seen by Middle East Eye showed that it had based its investigation on several posts shared on the Pro-Palestinian Society's Instagram page. The 2 posts included in the university's evidence bundle are from Middle East Eye's Instagram page. One is a video clip of an interview with Haniyeh originally broadcast by Al Jazeera Arabic in July of last year, explaining Hamas's motivations for fighting Israel. Can't have that. You can't be telling people about motivations. Another is a photo carousel of notable commentators, including former Al Jazeera English Director General Wada Kanfar, marking Haniyeh's death. Email correspondence seen by Middle East Eye revealed that a prevent coordinator for Essex had informed the Students' Union about the society's posts on Haniyeh. David Leighton Scott from the Department of Education's prevent team contacted the University of Essex Students' Union about the posts in August last year. The union had told the society that the posts had been reported to the police without telling it who was responsible for the complaint. Despite Essex police dropping the case against the students, the university continued its investigation against the 6 students. University policy states that it concludes investigations into student conduct breaches within 60 days. However, the society's investigation lasted for more than 200 days, prompting concerns among the students that they would be unable to graduate on time if it continued to drag on. That was probably the whole goal there. But the university has now dropped the charges, when the university official describing delays in the investigation as unacceptable. The University of Essex did not respond to Middle East Eye's request for comment on the case's conclusion or why it took longer than 60 days. And there's more to it here. As the students are relieved that the investigation is over. So this is from Middle East Eye, if you want to check this article out in full. UK university drops case against students. So, these universities, and that's the thing, man. It's like when you're threatened with losing your funding as a college, right? You know, over fucking censorship. I mean, what do? It's probably a Zionist-controlled college anyway. But even if it isn't, what do? Do you just say, look, well, then we're just going to close up shop? The Chase? What's that? I don't know what that is. 12-inch disco. Is that the name of the song, The Chase? That dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum. Is that what you're talking about? Their Spirit of the Age over on Rumble? Okay. So yeah, a lot of this stuff, a lot of these things are just going to end up in courts and being overturned. But that's the thing. They want you to, this is how they clog up, dissent, right? They make you go through all this fucking litigation, just for telling the truth, right? Just for having free speech. We stay in the UK and on Middle East Eye as MP John McDonnell urges probe, giggity, into anti-Semitism charity over smearing of a lecturer. Yeah. These anti-Semitism organizations, they need to be scrutinized, to say the least. Former Shadow Chancellor, I don't know anything about British politics or parliament or anything like that, but Shadow Chancellor, that doesn't sound good at all. That sounds like some Star Wars, like Sith shit. Former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell has urged the UK's Charity Commission to investigate the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, the CAA, after a London university apologized to a lecturer the CAA had accused of anti-Semitism. In August 2023, Goldsmiths University of London launched an investigation into Ray Campbell after receiving a complaint from the CAA about comments he had posted on social media. The complaint, based on posts collected by Nasher Jew, a pro-Israel monitoring group, accused Campbell of posting anti-Semitic content that targeted Jewish figures and drew comparisons between Israel and Nazis. Campbell, an associate lecturer in theater and performance at Goldsmiths and a teaching fellow at Royal Holloway, was suspended for 5 months during the investigation. In February, Goldsmiths dismissed all allegations against Campbell and apologized, acknowledging that the 5-month investigation caused him distress. In a letter to Britain's charity regulator on Thursday, seen by Middle East Eye, MP McDonnell referenced MEE's reporting on the case and said he was very concerned. The CAA is a UK-based charity that describes itself as combating anti-Semitism through advocacy, legal action, and public awareness efforts. Anonymous! British politics is a kid's playground shit show. Yeah. American politics is just a shit show. It has faced controversy over allegations that it conflates criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, raising concerns about its impact on political debate regarding Palestinian rights. McDonnell noted that the CAA based its allegations against Campbell on posts by Nasher Jew, which he said was anonymous and has been frequently condemned for its selective and inaccurate portrayal of anti-Semitism. None of these allegations against Dr. Campbell were found to be legitimate, he said, adding that the process was long, expensive, and extremely harmful to Dr. Campbell personally and professionally. Yeah, if you're called, accused of being anti-Semitic and you're some sort of like, administrator or teacher or something like that, it's, even if you're proven right, proven innocent, it still has repercussions on you. He urged the Charity Commission to investigate this action by the CAA. Middle East Eye has contacted the CAA for comment. Ray Campbell told MEE that the activities of Nasher Jew and the CAA harm the fight against anti-Semitism and the fight against racism more generally. He added, neither group works with anti-racist organizations, and this was very revealing because it tells us the nature of their work isn't to fight anti-Semitism, it's to smear the left and any critics of Israel, which it conflates with anti-Semitism. In April 2020, Jewish Voice for Labor, a group of Labor Party members, filed a complaint with the Charity Commission against the CAA, accusing it of acting as a highly politically partisan organization, which does not deserve charitable status. In September 2021, the CAA described JVL, that's the Jewish Voice for Labor, as an anti-Semitism denial group and a sham Jewish representative organization, a characterization JVL strongly condemned. So when Jews say it, then it's like, well, wait, you're not a real Jew. What? I didn't think that's a thing. JVL submitted another complaint in April 2022 to the Charity Commission, which then said in January 2023 that it was assessing concerns about the CAA and that it had opened a regulatory compliance case against the organization. Last May, the Charity Commission closed the case, saying that JVL has not demonstrated it has the required legal standing to make such an application. But in November, The Guardian reported that the regulator was assessing a statement made in September by the CAA in which it criticized the Labor government's decision to spend 30 arms export license to Israel as obscene. The review followed a complaint in October by McDonald, who accused the CAA of engaging in highly political and contentious public attacks on the government and individual government ministers. JVL co-chair Jenny Manson told MEE that the manner in which the CAA has maligned Ray Campbell indicates that it is continuing to misuse allegations of anti-Semitism in an attempt to shield Israel from criticism. When you confront people with facts about Israel and how they're, shooting kids in the head, then they're like, you're just being anti-Semitic. Apparently, wanting children to not be shot in the head is anti-Semitic. So Manson added, this is leading to inexcusable hardship and pain for the individuals targeted and too often to double standards applying to Israel's war crimes. This is disastrous not only for Palestinians, where it's a matter of life and death, but for Jews too and all of humanity. The CAA also drew public scrutiny early last year after it released footage in April that showed its chief, Gideon Falter, being told by a police officer at a pro-Palestinian protest that his openly Jewish appearance could antagonize demonstrators. This sounds like some Rabbi Shmuley shit. The incident led to widespread condemnation of the police officer, but a longer video released later showed the officer saying that Falter had walked into the middle of the march and was looking to try and antagonize. Lord Mann, the government's anti-Semitism czar, Lord Mann, said Falter's intention at the protest had been quite explicit and accused the CAA of not playing it straight. Lord Mann. That's a pretty pretentious name. Damn it. Why does this not do this when I want you to? Oh, I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah, that's it for Propaganda Watch, brought to you by Bullshit, where bullshit is always floating around. Speaking of shit, wait, not shit. Sorry. We'll get to the shits. We got a shit story coming up. It's gonna be fun. This is not shit. Check out our friend Kevin over at Black Bear News. I think he's doing his show on Substack on Fridays, I think. But he's also raising funds to help him get back on his feet after his home got burned in the LA fires. And the link is always down below in these shows. If you could share it out, if you can't donate, that works too. Also, coming up tonight, Friday night, we got something special for you.
Wrecker, I hardly know her.
Because they're stapled to the chicken.
Because they're stapled to the chicken.
Yes, we have no banana.
Yeah.
We have no banana today.
That's right. Tonight, folks, it's Chuck's Intergalactic UFO show, Intergalactic, another dimension, another dimension, another dimension, another dimension. That's tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time on the YouTube and on Rumble, if you're into that sort of thing. And tomorrow night, of course, it's this motherfucker. Saturday night. It's the secret show, doing more dumb shit, playing more dumb videos, hanging out, having a good time. You know you don't want to sleep. It's Saturday night. You want to hang out with an old white guy, right? Who doesn't? Damn, this is another long show, y'all. Yeah, make sure you're subscribed to Chuck's Intergalactic UFO show. Chuck, if you want to put your link to your channel in the chat, that would be sweetums. Put your YouTube and your Rumble channel in there, if you don't mind. Nips! You damn right! Which is spin spelled backwards, and I don't know what that means, but it's got to mean something. I think that's it. That's all that we have for you today. Almost 3 hours. Right. I thought this show was going to be longer. I was checking it as we were going. I was like, this is, I think if I'd read some of those longer stories a little bit more, we'd probably be still doing the show right now. So, so he's putting it in the links on YouTube there. It's YouTube at Chuck UFO Show. I think it's the Chuck UFO Show on Rumble too, right? Bella, you rock. I just roll because I'm fat. So he's got his Rumble thing here. So be sure to check him out tonight. That's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern, as we said, on those two channels. So fun stuff. A little space link in there. Silly good times. So I hope you enjoy that. Let's see. Then next week we're going to try again with Franco on Wednesday. Hopefully that should be a good show. Like I said, I was just not feeling good at all on Wednesday. Some bugaboos going around. Hopefully, hopefully you're well wherever you are. If you like what you heard, if you're brand new or whatever, you're just lurking in the darkness, wondering what it all means, you and me both. But if you wouldn't mind, subscribing, liking the video, sharing it out, that'd be great. If you want to donate to the show, we got donation links. The crawl right here, you'll see the links there, but they're also in the description down below. You can become a Patreon member for $1 a month. It's you get your name at the beginning of the show there with some nice train sounds. It's a beautiful thing. And if you can't donate or subscribe to any of that kind of stuff, if you could share out the links, that helps out a good bunch too. So take care of yourselves. Have a good weekend. Come see me tomorrow night on The Secret Show. Watch Chuck's UFO show tonight. Should be fun. He's been working hard on it. So you will be entertained, or else you get the hose again. Put the lotion in the basket.
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!
Soon.